you're online, is that correct? It would help if I got this on. Sorry. And can you hear us?
I can kind of hear you, but you sound like you're in the bottom of the well.
Can you,
Reverse-
Kyle, we
level
cannot hear her.
reverberation.
Can you please turn that up? And can you talk again?
Yeah, so I can hear you now, and there's less reverb.
We can barely hear you. We'll try to work on that here in a few minutes. We might as well get started though. I'm going to do a quick roll call.
Shit.
Ann Gass, you're present, I assume?
Yes, I'm present. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Excellent, thank you. Vince?
Present.
And Mike Johnson, present. Currently, Ken Farrington will be here for the council meeting, and Charity apologized, but she had a family emergency and will not make it tonight. So I'm going to have Sandy kind of introduce this, and we'll get going. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandy Carter. I am the chair of the Resiliency Committee, and tonight the Resiliency Committee and supporters, other volunteers who have helped us in this process, are here to do an initial presentation on our surface water protection ordinance. This is something that was originally discussed as we worked through our watershed management plan, for those that have followed us along on that journey. So we initially received a $50,000 grant from the state of Maine in order to create a town-wide watershed management plan, which we have completed and the council did accept, which we're very grateful for. And one of the items in that grant application was the creation of a surface water protection ordinance. So we were working on that in a parallel path. We've had a lot of good discussions, some with the council for some feedback, some with the OAC, with town staff. And so this is our initial draft and our presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our member, Andy Barhype, who's going to actually do the presentation, and then he's going to call on some various supporters who have more detailed expertise in certain areas.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandy. And thanks for all the work that you do for the community.
All right. Thank you guys for taking the time this evening. My name is Andy Barhyte. I live here in Gray on Knudsen Road. And I, as Sandy said, am a member of the Resiliency Committee. So the mission of the Resiliency Committee is to build a resilient future for Gray. We're here to strengthen the town systems, prevent future, potential mishaps, and adapt to the changing world that we're living in right now. So we're trying to do that via long-term sustainability and addressing key issues with things that are going on in the town, specifically in this case around the lakes and water bodies that are in town. And we're, as the last bullet says, we're guided by public input, strategic planning. We've done a lot of work at the community events over the last few years, taking feedback from the town and from the people and trying to address and align ourselves with the missions that people want us to target. And one of those major problems that people came to us with, especially from the lake associations, was addressing concerns around the health of the water bodies in town. And we're going to get into what the major problem is based on the assessments done by Cumberland County Soil and Water and how we think we could address some of those problems. So we're going to go right into what is phosphorus. Phosphorus is a essential nutrient that is in basically everything. It's in humans, but it is not great for water bodies, specifically lakes and rivers and feeder streams. So when they get into a lake or a water body in too much or too large a concentration, that can trigger something like an algae bloom, which a photo of is shown on the screen now. That is from Lake Kanasatka in Moultonborough, New Hampshire. There was also recently an algae bloom in Augusta, I believe, within the last month, I want to say. So these are things that can have a huge detriment on the quality of our lakes and, prevent people from being able to access those bodies of water, especially during times of recreation, during the summers, when everybody wants to be out on the water, enjoying it in their preferred way. So these are real things that are happening all around us, and we've got a couple case studies here to demonstrate why spending a little bit of money or putting some protections in place can actually save us a lot of money in the long term. So I know this slide is pretty wordy, but the major headline is every dollar invested in resilience saves $13. So every dollar we put in up front saves us money in the long term because we don't have to react. We can be proactive instead of reactive. And being proactive in this case, this is based on a U.S. Chamber of Commerce study from 2024. Again, going back to the Lake Kanasatka article, there is a link to it at the bottom of the PowerPoint if you get there. That's from the Globe. But to fix that cyanobacteria, which they would need to prevent the phosphorus spread, that requires chemical intervention. That's an aluminum treatment that we have to put in the lake that then has to take time to sink to the bottom, bind with the phosphorus itself, and sequester it. It's not even fixing the problem, it's just covering it up so the algae bloom happens less. So it's not really fixing it. The way to fix it is to prevent it from really getting in there in the first place. So that's what we're targeting. That's what we're getting at here is we could spend $600,000 on this and be reactive, but that's going to be something that we don't want to deal with when the time comes. We're advocating putting some low impact, no nonsense ordinance safeguards and rails in place that would help to try and prevent this at the root cause, which is the primary, secondary, and tertiary development around our lakes and water bodies. So again, why now? Our current shoreline zoning isn't enough, and I have some evidence for that later and some thoughts about what we could do. What we're trying to address here is that second and third tier development around the lake. Little Sebago, Forest, they're all pretty much all developed. Crystal Lake, they're all developed at this point around that primary tier. But we have secondary and third tier development happening up the hill or away from the water quite at this moment. That's all of these lakes are essentially giant bowls, and that development, if we don't take care and put in some safeguards to prevent not necessarily the people who are doing it right, but make sure that everybody's on the same playing field. Make sure everybody knows the baseline expectations of gray compared to what we want to achieve and protect our water bodies doing. A quarter of our assessed value in the town is lakefront property. That's 25% of the whole assessed value of the town. And this is from the local, I think it was from Lauren's department, actually, we got this number. Was it? That's correct. So that's the numbers right in front of you, $564 million worth of property there. Falmouth and Wyndham have already adopted much more stringent restrictions around their developments than we're proposing. We're trying to keep this a low-touch ordinance so that it's achievable for everyday people who want to build a shed, who want to expand their driveway, put an addition on the house, but still does something effective. We don't want it to be something that's just going to not do anything, but also make us do something. We got to be on the forefront, not the forefront. We're even behind right now. Wyndham, Falmouth, I don't know exactly about Raymond, but all the other towns around us have some of these, but we also have water bodies within Gray that are wholly enclosed that have essentially no protection on them other than that shoreland zoning ordinance, which only protects a certain amount. So to put forward the assessments that you've seen in the watershed management plan. This is just for Crystal Lake and Little Sebago, where you can see there are lots of different colors on here, but the lake vulnerability in the red section, I'm going to point your focus to the runoff pollution. That is red. That is something that we're trying to address by limiting the phosphorus runoff through some simple protections that people can do when they're making a project happen. So Little Sebago Lake has invested over $80,000 in milfoil reduction per year, and Crystal Lake has spent over $16,000 per year in testing efforts. And I'm going to throw it quickly to Pam and to Cheryl to make sure that I got those numbers right, because they're the representatives from those lake associations.
It's actually a total of the 4 years is 16.
So a 4-year total, sorry, for Crystal Lake is $16,000. And Pam had given me some new numbers after we had put this presentation out there. So that,
So 25 years, we've spent $1.3 million, and we've taken 138 tons of milfoil out of the lake. We've
Okay.
also spent $33,000 on water quality, and that's pretty much
so
where we stand.
$1.2 million over 20 years, 1.2
25 years,
for 25 years. And what was the tonnage again?
133 tons.
133 tons of milfoil removed. So that's, I mean, the lakes are burdened by doing this work right now. And it doesn't cost Gray much or anything really to put a little ordinance in place to help bolster the efforts. And there are other lakes around us that have put in protections and put in effort, and there've markedly been results shown. I'm going to pass it over to Dennis Brown, who's a member of the Highland Lake Association and the chair of the Natural Resources Committee in Wyndham. He's going to talk about this graph that talks about Highland Lake and the preventative actions they've done there.
How do we get it back?
I think it's Kyle. It's not me. There we go.
Hi. I think, Vince, you probably saw the graph that we have here on the tour that we took during the summertime. And I am president of the Highland Lake Association and chair of the Natural Resource Advisory Committee. And we were successful in putting in place some fairly strict ordinance to help protect Highland Lake, because we have phosphorus levels about the same as Little Sebago. And we ended up with 4 years in a row of having blooms. Not as bad as what you saw in the earlier photo, but blooms nonetheless. And so we worked very closely and formed a partnership with, Highland is half Wyndham, half Gray. And so we formed a partnership with the two towns, and ordinance was coordinated to make sure that there were protections in place. Through our watershed management plan, we've got some fairly extensive education that's worked out well. But I would say it's really a three-legged stool. It takes commitment from the town and from the lake associations if you really want to do something. It takes education and outreach. I know that's come up in some of the prior discussions that we've had, and absolutely, that's a key part. But the third leg is having an ordinance. A lot of people don't attend the training sessions, but once a neighbor or they try to do something with their property and they see that there's an ordinance associated with that, they start to recognize that this isn't a bunch of tree huggers trying to do something. The town's on board too. There's some science behind this. So it's really important to do that. On this curve, to get into that just a little bit, that's a phosphorus curve. We have a similar curve, almost a mirror image of that on our water clarity. They both are measured from different techniques, but they mirror each other, validating each other. As you reduce the phosphorus, there's always some algae, just a tiny bit. You need to have some in the water system, but the more you get, then the water clarity goes away. So we have been able to cut back the phosphorus and the water clarity back to where we were in the 1990s. But you can see what's happened on this graph from the 70s. As soon as development starts, now instead of having a canopy that stops the rain from hitting, the rain comes down and hits a lawn, hits bare ground. You know, anything that's developed where the water can come off roofs, can channel geez, I gotta be careful here, and create little rivulets that get in, drag material into the lake that has phosphorus. So you can see as the development came, and then Wyndham did put in some ordinance around 2003, but it really didn't work the way, quite the extent that we wanted. And then you can see where it peaks, that's where our blooms came. And then there was a huge effort, again, between the two towns and the Lake Association. So the key, again, to getting this done is having a real commitment. And I've worked with the people here on the Lake Associations for a number of years. We have a Southern Lakes Coalition, so I've gotten to know them and how serious they are. I would say Little Sebago is probably in the top 3, at least, best organized lake associations in the state. They do a fantastic job. And so, but you need to have that commitment between them and the town, and it's going to take a full court press over years to get people to really understand how everything we do eventually affects the lake. And I've been around water my whole life. I'm a Pisces. You got to be around water. And what I didn't, and I'm a professional engineer, mechanical, but I had no idea what phosphorus did to water. And until I finally got involved with the Lake Association. And once I did, it was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And what's hit me is, if I've been that close to water my whole life and a professional engineer, and I didn't know all of this stuff, a lot of people don't know this stuff. And so we really pushed hard on the education piece, and it's been successful. We've put together some really good lake-friendly living brochures that we've shared with all of these folks and lakes throughout the state. We made it so that anybody can take it and use it, and we've updated it as there's been new laws come into the state relative to wake boats and that kind of stuff. So it's a never-ending battle. And I don't know on the Gray Lakes what percentage of the people move each year, but there's another 20% coming in that don't know. So this is something that never goes away. So I'm here as an individual, as a volunteer. I'm not here in an official town of Wyndham capacity by any stretch, but Wyndham can't do it alone with just the lower third of the lake. We'd really appreciate your help.
Thanks, Dennis. So this is kind of where we get into some of the ordinance parts. I didn't put the whole thing up here. Nobody wants to read that in a presentation. So I'm going to try to take it at broad strokes, big swings. That's what we're trying to get across here. So, we're going in with a purpose here. This summary to prevent phosphorus-laden runoff from construction and landscaping from entering our lakes and waterways through the design and implementation of a project. Again, that could be a little too engineer-y, but really, when somebody's doing work, we want to make sure that they're doing it responsibly and protecting our water body. I put a couple of sections and the more key sections in here, so we want to address them. The applicability. So this will apply to 1,000 feet of the high water mark of any great pond or within 250 feet of the normal water mark of all other water bodies except feeder streams to lakes. Then it's 500 feet. So that's the numbers, and we can talk about that in a minute. Let me finish the other parts of the applicability. So this is only going to apply to construction projects within the Surface Water Protection Ordinance Zone if they are adding more than 200 square foot of ground area, floor area, a road or driveway construction or major reconstruction or parking area construction that affects more than 1,500 square feet of land area done in one event or over time, to try to skirt people trying to do piecemeal little bits to get around it. Any earth moving, brush and tree cutting with stumping and grubbing that affects 10,000 square feet or more, done in one event or over time and lasting until soil is permanently stabilized. And then activity on slopes that result in visible runoff toward affected lakes and streams. I'm going to touch on number 4 first. There is a photo later that will really drive that point home. And then the number 3, earth moving, brush and tree cutting with stumping and grubbing. So if we're just cutting trees and not taking the stumps out, that does not destabilize the ground. So there will not be runoff or erosion in that instance. So that's why it's with stumping and grubbing. So we have to be pulling stumps on that one. And then if we're adding a driveway more than, I think it was what, Tammy, 10 by 10 driveway or
10 by 20.
10 by 20 driveway was the suggestion from Tammy. So that's what that number comes from. And then the 200 square foot of ground floor area so that people could build something like a shed and not be impacted by this. So it's really home construction additions within this extra 1,000-foot section. There are some exemptions, and there's the basics of them are where we're not changing any use or expanding any road or driveway, none of that. So we can change of use something. If it's a licensed timber management or harvesting plan, that's going to have a stamp from a professional engineer in the state of Maine anyway, so that's got to be incorporated in that. Anything that falls in the zoning ordinance, we're not trying to usurp that. We're trying to just be in addition to protect areas around the ordinance that are not covered currently. Activities permitted by the planning board where such approvals include soil erosion and sediment control plans. Again, that's going to have a professional engineer certification on it, so that wouldn't be applicable and would be something that would drive a higher level than what we're asking for. And then agriculture as defined by the ordinance of the shoreland zoning ordinance. And that's because that is already its own thing and handled by the shoreland zoning. So what does all that mean? I just said a lot of words. Really what we're talking about in this is there is, and the photo's showing up a little small for everybody in the room, and I feel bad for that, but we can kind of see right about where that driveway is or that road secondary is. That's 250 feet. 1,000 feet is basically up past that third tier of development. 250 feet, if you draw a straight line along the waterfront there, the two houses that already exist are not in 250 feet of the lake. So anything they do, they're right there. They can see the lake through the woods. Anything they do is not covered by the protection zones of the shoreland zoning. And you can see in the photo that I shared, this is my road. This is where I live. It's a huge hill, so much so that my son won't walk up it. It's a very steep hill, and it runs right to the lake, right into the shore. And the shoreland protection zone just stops past about that stop sign. Everything else up that slope, I can tell you from experience, on a wet day, it's all running right to the lake. Everything runs down that hill, and it's like that everywhere else on Little Sebago. It's like that on Crystal. It's like that on Forest. The lakes themselves are basically just giant bowls that collect everything from around it. So what we're proposing is to bring that surface water protection ordinance zone just up into that second and third tier to cover the houses that are already there and the houses that could be built in that extra space. So that, I think, is a pretty helpful visual. And this is just a Google Earth, picture of, the road that I live on. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of space that's not protected currently, or not, they can do whatever they want with. And that's everybody's prerogative to do what they want with it. We're just asking for something, again, that makes sense. So I made a little flow chart because, again, I'm an engineer like Dennis. This is how I work. A flow chart is easy to understand. Okay, I have a project idea. Say I want to make a driveway at my house. Am I within the vicinity of a water body? Am I anywhere near it? No? You're all set. Go for it. If you are you building a new structure over 200 square feet? Nope. Okay, go to the next box. All right, am I adding 200 square feet of an existing structure? Nope. Next one. Am I digging up 1,500 square feet of earth to make that project happen? Then, if yes, you jump to that, apply for a permit. And that permit process is, again, intended to be very low touch. You go to Tammy, she shows you a sample plan, something that the Resiliency Committee has committed to putting out there, a couple brochures, and say, this is how we would prefer that you would do it. This is, a way to do it responsibly. And when presented with information, we feel like people would do the right thing. That's it. But if you don't need the permit, you won't go see Tammy. You won't know that. You won't be educated. And if you don't know that you need to be educated, you're just going to do it, kind of thing. So that's the proposal. It's pretty simple. There's a couple extra steps. Are you cutting trees? Are you removing the stumps? And then if it does just show the water running into the lake, common sense, you don't need a pop level or a slope gauge or anything like that, full topography analysis to do this. Just if you think that it needs it, we'd ask that you get somebody who may know a little bit more to take a look at it. That's it. So this, again, what needs to be done? Permits to be obtained from the Code Enforcement Office. A successful permit will show where the water runoff is likely to occur, how you plan to manage that runoff during the process and the project, and how it'll be contained after the project is complete. The plan will be reviewed by one of the code enforcement officers, and any required changes will be discussed with the applicant provided with the permit. So I said we're going to try to give handouts, we're going to try to educate. It's to create the opportunity to educate people, to put some of these low stakes protections in place. Some of those protections can be things like a silt fence or erosion control mix berm. Erosion control mix berms can be made from the trees you're cutting down. You can grind up the stumps, turn them into a berm per the handbook. There's all sorts of civil engineering and engineering guides on this. But again, the handouts, in theory, hopefully that's the aim, is to provide that backup. And a contractor who knows what they're doing does this every day, all day. They know how to do this. So if you hire someone who knows what they're doing, again, this is nothing outside the ordinary. The key is that if somebody wants to do it themselves, the protections need to stay in place throughout the work, and they need to be maintained. A silt fence isn't going to do any good if it's knocked over by a rainstorm or a kid with a basketball. It's not going to do anything at that point if it's broken. So that's while the project is happening phase. And then after the fact, permanent stabilization sounds like a big topic, a big thing. Really what it is how do we hold the soil in place? How do we make it so that it doesn't run away when the rain happens? How do we, prevent the loam that we're spreading from running right into the lake and contributing to that phosphorus load of the water body? So one of the ways, and all the lake associations right now already have handouts on these. How do you do a Lake Smart garden, which is basically native species that you plant as a vegetative buffer. And that means that you plant, instead of grass all the way up to the lake edge, you put some low grow bushes there with some mulch and a couple of things that trap that water and don't let it run into the lake. So it's everybody's opinion how they want their yard to look, but in my opinion, putting a couple of bushes there gives you a little privacy. You get still the benefit of having a lawn behind that if you want. You get a couple bushes to prevent the soccer ball from running into the lake and the geese. But grass is a stabilization method. You do need, if you want to plant grass, you can, but it's not very effective at preventing that erosion out because there's nothing stopping it. There's no entrapment method for that mulchy loam or silty erosion material to come out. So anybody who, again, as the photo says, anybody who's putting down fertilizer on that lawn, again, we would have pamphlets, handouts. This is directly from one of the Lake Association handouts. Just a 0 in the middle number of your fertilizer bag means there is no phosphorus. So again, this is it's education and the ordinance together. We're trying to make that that three-legged stool, as Dennis said. So I put a couple of questions here. Things that we've heard before, things we thought of ourselves. I'm going to go through them kind of quick. This doesn't capture everything. Well, it's not supposed to. It's one tool in a toolbox. We're not trying to solve every problem all at once. We're trying to solve a problem we can solve right now. The watershed management plan has other methods for attacking other ways or other problems that we need to deal with. This is just a targeted single topic effort for preventing runoff from surrounding homes and plots of land. It could be too expensive. Well, it is. It's expensive to do that, but if you're putting in an addition on your house, are you going to spend an extra $1,000 to make sure that the lake that you're building next to stays algae-free and bloom-free for a long time? I think it's worth it. It could be expensive. It's also $50 to go buy a roll of silt fence at Home Depot. It's not that terribly expensive. You got to dig a trench and you got to install it properly, but that's, again, the monetary expense for a homeowner to do this individually is less than it would be to lose access to the lake for the whole town and spend money on this actively.
It's also expensive to have to redo it if it's not done right the first time. So it costs a lot of money to keep putting the soil down.
Yep. There have been anecdotes I heard during our meeting with the OAC that somebody put down, the whole yard full of new loam, and a big storm came in, washed it right out into the lake. If there was a buffer in place, if there was something there, it could have been prevented, and you wouldn't have lost the investment of trying to put it down before it was totally seeded in, washing away. What about septic systems? That is a good question. We need to answer that that's another target for the watershed management plan. It's not meant to be covered wholly by this ordinance, but that would be something in theory that would be covered because you're disturbing the earth up to that, potentially that size. So it does not mean you can't have a lawn. It does not mean that you can't have the lawn you want. It just means that we ask that you be, or we're encouraging folks to be mindful when they're putting in their lawn, and it'll keep it beautiful. How does it affect agriculture? Again, that's covered mostly by the not the surface water protection, but the shoreline zoning ordinance right now. And agriculture is kind of its own thing within Gray. We're not trying to affect agriculture with this at all. And that's still going to be managed by the other ordinances on the books. So that is the end of my presentation. I got in here in 40 minutes. I feel like that was pretty okay. If you guys have any questions, I think we're all here to answer them. And if anybody else, I'm not sure how this works, if other people are going to talk or questions.
All right, I'll stop. Do you have any questions?
Not at this time, although one of the questions I had, and I don't know if we can do it, have we ever looked at, in addition to this, because like I understand where you're coming from, when I did my tour of the lake, I saw a lot of places where there wasn't natural vegetation. There were lawns and there were beaches and, you know, there was roof runoffs and they didn't have anything on the side of the house to drain it. And, you know, there were wake boats buzzing across the lake, digging up the phosphorus. So, you know, I guess part of it, I'm wondering if, and I don't know what we can do, if we can do it, is there a point in time where we can start saying, all right, in the next 3 to 5 years, each home has to do X or have X.
Yep.
Because I look at it, and I agree there's some things that can be done, and I also agree that, you know, when that gentleman came up, education, you know, like I understood that from him clearly.
Yeah.
Education is the key, and the people that live on the boat that have these nice high property values are the ones that are using it the most. So you'd think they would have the most to gain by doing things.
Exactly. So one thing that this ordinance doesn't address, and we can amend at another point, or was never intended to go in this first read as when, but we've thrown around ideas of if the property transfers hands, or, you know, somebody puts it in a trust, like at time of sale, then it would need to comply with the ordinance or have some sort of protections on that in place. But none of that at this moment, I think, is, to my knowledge. I'll let Sandy talk.
No, and actually Dennis can probably talk about this a little bit more, because it is something, since they've had their ordinance in place for a little bit, they are now starting to look at that next step. How do you do that with existing homes? One of the more successful programs is the Lake Smart program itself, and it is active on Little Sebago Lake. Crystal Lake now has a volunteer who is willing to be trained, but essentially it's just people who are in the association volunteer to be trained. They are trained on what Lake Smart is, gutters, putting gravel down where your water is running off your rooftop, things that are already existing on site. They will come out to a property owner's house and do a full evaluation for them. It doesn't cost any money. There's no code involved. There's no commitment to change anything. But that allows that conversation, and that's primarily what this ordinance is for, is to trigger that conversation. So we pick the ones that we know we can trigger immediately, and then there's a phase 2, a phase 3 to do those things that you were talking about.
Yeah, because those pamphlets, I think we have some out here.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're fantastic.
It's I hate to say it, it's not rocket science. You open that up and it clicks, but it's a great little piece.
Yeah, and I think with this ordinance, what we're trying to do is get in on the ground floor. So if you're building something or you're doing that, you're already having a conversation with a contractor, you're doing it yourself. You're going to come talk to Tammy in the first place. She's going to be able to say, here's some information that you should consider, and quite frankly, it's better for the landowner. Long term, it's going to be better for them, both maintenance and protecting the value of their home.
Thank you.
I got a few questions, and you might not have all the answers, but one of the things when you guys first got up here, you said that we are Little Sebago Lake, and I live on Little Sebago, so 25% of the tax value. Do you know what percent of population that is for the town?
It's 17%.
It's 17.
17%.
Okay. And have we looked at, 1,000 feet's pretty far back, right? And I think that, my opinion is that's a little too far. Especially for somebody like me, that I have the lake in front of me and the brook behind me. And, I have more concern, honestly, with the brook than if I'm 750 feet from the lake, it's not making it down there. I mean, there's too much, to get to there. I understand where you're at Knudsen, because my uncle has a house right there. So, in a hill, like coming down Mountain View, that does roll straight in, but most land that's flat, it's, I just think that, 1,000's a little much, but, have you looked at that versus, like 500?
We did look at different levels. On Highland Lake, it's the entire watershed. So it's not just so many feet back, it's anywhere water flows down towards the lake. And one of the things that I think is really important is that studies have been done that showed on Lake Champlain, they were able to trace phosphorus from 40 miles away. So it's surprising how it will find a path to get there. And so that's pretty critical. We did look at we started out, I made the recommendation.
2,500 feet was
Yeah.
where we started.
Right,
so.
and it took up all of the business districts and everything else, so we said, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, it is something to keep in mind, two things to keep in mind. There's a new construction on Crystal on Mayberry that is outside the zone, and it happens to be on a sloped lot. And they've done a pretty good job putting some buffer on their property. If they had not, that water hits that road, and the road curves down into a hill, and it goes straight into the stream, and the stream goes right into the lake. And so I think there are properties like that, but how do you differentiate that? Well, Tammy will. So if somebody is in the 1,000 zone and they go to Tammy, and Tammy goes out and looks at that property, and it's flat, and what they have planned is going to already manage that stormwater, then they're not doing anything extra. It's when they go out and say, okay, this is going to cause runoff, there is going to be runoff here, you haven't accounted for it, so what are you going to do to stop that from happening? So it's that conversation. If they're in a situation like you're describing, she may say the plan that they're doing is fine the way it is.
Okay. And my biggest concern, Sandy, is that, hopefully Tammy stays for a while, but we have had, multiple, as you know, code enforcement officers, and
Yeah.
everyone has a different interpretation of these, and it's always, I want to be very clear about what this is, and I think that's, and I also want to be very clear about what the consequences are, because, we've all seen it where somebody from out of state comes in and they just do whatever they want because they don't care about the fines.
Yeah.
And, the guy next door that's, inherited it from his grandmother and can't afford to do all these things, but wants to do it right, it's just, I just want to make sure that it does both things, the worst thing that ever happened to us, and I talked to Pam about this a few weeks ago, is the state forced us to put the boat ramp in, and, if it wasn't for that, I don't think we would have spent $1.2 million on, maybe not, maybe we would have, but, I have a feeling that that's what caused the milfoil to come in. So
Yeah, and to that point, I will say that part of us going through the OAC, and I see Adam is here, and he actually, we made several changes based on Adam's feedback. Because we do understand, and I'm a former counselor, so I understand, it is very difficult to cover every possible scenario in an ordinance, and sometimes you can have the wrong intent, or the right intent, but the wrong result. And so we did go through the OAC a couple of times to add some specific exemptions, and we tried to cover, to make it as clear as we can. But the one nice thing about ordinances is you can revise them. So I think we've done a great entry point. And just for those who are unaware of the process, this is our opening conversation with you. It is a lot of information, so if you have, and several counselors aren't here, if you have additional questions or feedback, we would love for you to send that to us. We would definitely be willing to come back and actually do a workshop where we're walking through the ordinance word for word with you. And then, of course, there'll be first reads and public hearings so that more people can get involved. So it is a rather long process, and we understand that, but we hope you consider at least continuing the conversation with us.
Absolutely. No, we want to definitely protect this huge investment. Any more questions? All right, Ann, is there anything you want to say? You can hand up, I see.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I just want to say, I really want to acknowledge the hard and thoughtful work that the Resiliency Committee has put into this ordinance over the last 18 months or so. And, this has included a lot of meetings and a lot of word by word grinding through the ordinance. And then, as Sandy mentioned, two meetings with the Ordinance Advisory Committee. And, I think all of us have learned a lot during this process, and I want to emphasize a few points. I mean, there are lakes in New England that have become contaminated with phosphorus, or that have had algae blooms resulting from nutrient loading. That's really important to understand. It's extremely, and including lakes in Maine. It's really important for people to understand that, and there's not a lot of warning sometimes that the lake is about to flip. So it's really important for us to do this advanced work and this preventive work to prevent the lake from experiencing big algae blooms, because it's really possible to end up having to spend a small fortune on trying to clean it up, and the results of that are not guaranteed. So I think it's really important that we adopt this ordinance. I think, to Sandy's point, if there are specific concerns, please do share them with me, and I can get them to the Resiliency Committee, or with any members of the Resiliency Committee, with Sandy or anybody else. Because I think we have really tried hard to be responsive to the concerns that have been raised. But on the other hand, I think it is absolutely a break with the past. I mean, the 250-foot zone is insufficient, and we have to do better. We have to do more. And this permitting process is a way to require homeowners or builders to come in and have that conversation with the code office. It's true that there is employee churn, Mike, but I don't think we can let that stop us from putting in place the mechanisms to try to influence what happens with our lakes, because once those properties go in, it's pretty hard to if we have no tools with which to work with those homeowners and builders, then there's not much we can do about it. And I guess I also am glad that you mentioned the boat ramps, Mike, because I think sometimes there's a tendency to say, well, those lakefront property owners, they have those really nice properties, and they get the bulk of the benefit of the lakes. And to some degree that's true, although they also get a lot of boat traffic and noise and wake and sloshing up on the shores, and they're doing the bulk of the work to try to improve lake water quality. But that the fact of the matter is, the boat ramps on all the lakes really bring a ton more traffic, and so we have to, as a town, I think we owe it to the lakefront, to the lakes. Setting aside the lakefront property owners, the lakes themselves, we've authorized and permitted this as a society, the extra traffic on the lakes, and it's our job to protect them, because otherwise, they won't be worth much to anybody.
No, I agree. Thank you. All right, Andy, we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. It is 6:50. We're going to take a 10-minute break before the 7 o'clock meeting. I appreciate your time. Thank you. I have no idea. All right, you guys all ready? Yep. All right. Hey, I want to thank everyone for coming to the Gray Town Council meeting, May 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. The meeting is going to be held in person and online. The link will be provided above. Residents wishing to participate in public comment or public hearing of the public hearing portion of the agenda may do so by clicking into the participate or call in by using the phone number provided as detailed in the agenda. I am going to start with roll call. I'm going to start with Ann Gass,
Present.
Ken Farrington,
Present.
Vince,
Present.
and Mike Johnson. I am present as well. We are going to stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we are going to put this back on. And I am going to start with the approval of minutes for the 2026, April 7th, 2026 minutes as presented. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, the motion approved.
Second Ken. Does anybody have any requests for amendments? I'll start with Ann. Do you have any requests?
No.
All right, Ken?
No.
Vince?
No, reviewed, nothing.
No, and I don't have any either. I'm just going to take a vote. Everyone in favor as it is? Ann?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous consent. All right, so we are going to start with council communications. And I'll start. All right, so I'll give my chair update. I met with the Gray Water District last week. They raised a few items. They are requesting access to some TIF funds. They believe they were previously earmarked for some water main improvements within the TIF district. They also expressed concern about some potential leakage from the transfer station impacting the wellhead and are seeking some assistance to cover testing costs there. I asked them to work directly with Denise and with Lauren to determine whether the funds were earmarked, where they would come from, and when they could be realistically be assessed. We really need to be clear and disciplined about where these funds are allocated and what commitments we have made, moving forward, so that everybody's on the same page. I talked to, I'm on the library committee. There wasn't a meeting this month, but I did talk to Andrea today. I think many of us had seen that there were some issues. There were some pamphlets left in over 100 library books. They were political, and the staff did a really good job of removing those, and they are monitoring the situation very closely. They do have a video of the person, but no one has recognized that person so far. But they are definitely going to be keeping an eye out for that, and we ask that everyone be respectful of others and their opinions moving forward. I also heard from some people about our solar panel ordinance. I've received multiple calls, emails regarding the height ordinance. We have two local businesses, Howells and Rod. I'm not sure what your hardware store is called this week. Gray Village Hardware. They're trying to move forward with some installations, and they're tied to some sensitive rebates. If we don't act quickly, they'll likely lose those funds and they may not proceed. This is just another clear example of where timing really does matter, and delays have some real consequences for these local businesses. I also received multiple emails and phone calls about the Sheriff's Department. And I have wanted to, make sure that the data that's presented is clear, and that, I see Kevin and another gentleman here from the Sheriff's Department. I think sometimes, there are mixed messages, and I want to go through all the material that I've collected so that everyone has the correct information, and I assume they'll get up here for 3 minutes and speak as well. So the data that I have, and I do have copies of a lot of the data, the numbers, the 5,200, I just want to be very clear. I think it's misleading. And Kevin can come up, but I'll give you an example. On October 18, 2025, we have service from 6 to 4 is what we pay for. 6:10 a.m. property checks. 8:28 a.m., 9:11 hang up. 11:06 a.m. disturbance, 3:04 p.m. alarm. That was one day. And that was for, and I want to be clear, that's what we pay for. Okay, that's not all the calls in here, but that's what we pay for. Property checks often include multiple businesses being logged within minutes. In addition, the same incident can be recorded multiple times, sometimes 2 to 5 times entries for a single call, as seen on March 2nd, 2026. We fund the sheriffs from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week. And I want to be very clear, and Kevin can address this when he gets up. We're not losing police coverage. We'll continue to receive coverage through the Cumberland County as we do today. There's 14 communities of the county without police departments. They all receive coverage. Some towns do decide to pay for extra coverage, like we had been. Standish has 7 deputies, and they may have hired 8, and I'll let him clarify that. Harrison has 2. When I talked to them, they were deciding whether they're going to 1. Hartsville has 3, and that makes a lot of sense because of the geography. And a lot of the island communities hire somebody for the summer. We also do pay the SRO to cover us for the summer. The research that I did is that currently measurable differences without having the extra service is response time, which is right now on an average from 12 to 15 minutes, and it could move from 15 to 20. And again, the research that I did is that, the majority of the, 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning is the most critical. We also need to be honest about what deters crime. Presence alone does not have the impact many assume it does. That is not an opinion, that's what the data shows. If the concern is speeding, enforcement is not the most effective solution. Traffic design and speed back signs have a greater impact. If the concern is theft and property crime, then we should be talking about cameras, investigations, and regional coordination. Construction site theft, for example, has been an issue since I built my house in 2005, and it's extremely prevalent again today. We should also be having serious conversations with our neighbors. Towns like New Gloucester, Raymond, North Yarmouth, about shared solutions. There should be an ad hoc committee. It would be useful, just like they did with the transfer station. The idea that Gray is just suddenly going to become a crime haven is just not supported by facts. From a financial standpoint, Gray budgeted $700,000 for coverage. I know Cumberland County has posted $531,372,000. The difference is this, okay, is that we budget for everything. I have a breakdown here, all right? That includes gas, that includes the cost of vehicles, and that includes the details. So I can't go to you guys and say $531,000. That's not the cost to us for this. It's $700,000, all right? Now, they may only be charging us $531,000, but we have to budget for $700,000, all right? Yarmouth operates a full department, 14 officers, 8 vehicles, detectives, 24/7 service at a cost of $1.4 million, and that's for their own building. We need to address how decisions are going to be made. An additional deputy was approved for part of the year. The vehicle was purchased, again, for about $120,000. The deputy was never hired. If they would have been, we would have needed to purchase another vehicle, is my understanding. And I could be wrong, but that is my understanding. And this is why we need to be more disciplined about how we review our spending moving forward. A budget is a one-year decision. It is not a permanent commitment, but it does require careful review before approval. The budget process, I want to be direct with everybody. The process is not acceptable the way it's done today. We are being asked to review, adjust, and vote on major financial decisions in the same meeting. That is not how we should be making responsible decisions. I propose that the full budget be presented the first Saturday in March. I started last year in July begging that we do this, okay? That would allow time to review, ask questions, make changes, and hear the public before final votes happen. Instead, we are dragging the process out over multiple Tuesday nights, putting pressure both on the counselors and staff, and not allowing enough time for proper analysis. That needs to change. I hope it's a priority for the new town manager. It's also important that residents understand the difference between a council manager type form of government and a town meeting structure. There's a lot of confusion around that. You know, I'm gonna be very candid. The council stepped into a situation this year where many decisions had been made without the level of review and scrutiny that are required. There was too much reliance on simply approving what was put in front of the council without fully understanding the details, with the long-term impact, or even whether the information being presented was complete. This is not how the council should operate moving forward, and not understanding what you are rubber stamping everything that is presented without knowing the details and asking the hard questions and having a budget that doubles in just a few years isn't fair to all of our taxpayers. We owe it to the taxpayers to ask those harder questions, to verify the data, and to fully understand what we are approving. There are more efficient, more responsible ways to run this town, and you know that's exactly what we need to do moving forward as councilors. I have seen so much misinformation out there, no data to back it up, and people are running around claiming the sky is falling. It's just not appropriate, and that's not the way to run a town. I wholeheartedly agree that the process needs to be better, and I have been very vocal about this. As a community, we need to stop getting our information from Facebook, and I did say Facebook. Look at the data like the information here from the Sheriff's Department. This is all of the data, and I have multiple copies of it, okay? Look at it. The previous council voted borrowing on $2 million last year to have a balanced budget, and they were giving out huge raises. What would have happened if we had borrowed $2 million to balance the budget this year? Taxes are going up every year. That's just a part of life. We can't cut corners like it has been in the past. We need to keep up with the road maintenance. We need to replace equipment regularly, and we need to replacing everything. You know, we can't be replacing everything at the same time. We need to save for future projects, like the cost of a future reassessment. Well, I know we need to understand how we spend our money. We just can't be also wasting money. There needs to be research done. Grace should not be picking up the tab like we have been for other towns. This just needs to stop. Many of our citizens are aging, and we cannot force them out of their homes because councils are more concerned with getting special projects done than looking at the whole picture. I will leave you this. Even though I don't like the way I handled the situations this year or the decisions that I made, I can sleep at night because every decision I made has been looking out for the best interest of this town. I do my research. I listen to everyone and not just a few people. I have spent countless nights fighting for everyone in this town, cleaning up the mess that was left me. The directions we were going in was dangerous, reckless, and would have driven many citizens out of Gray. Unfortunately, many of the details will never be shared. And, you know, I never once did something in it for myself. It was always for the employees and for the citizens. This is a thankless job. You can always write me, and I'll respond to you, and I'll share the information you can. I want to thank you all, and I hope you do your homework when you get up here. I also hope that you take some time. I think the sheriffs do a good job. I do not believe in, not having police coverage. I think we need to know what we need, though, okay? And I think just throwing money out there and throwing money out there and not knowing what we need is ridiculous. And it needs to stop somewhere. We need to understand what our needs are, we need to assess them, and we need to move forward. Because just rubber stamping everything like we have been for the last few years is gonna bury this town. We're growing, and we need to know what our actual needs are. And that is my report. Thank you. Ken?
Ken?
I had the Finance Committee meeting this month. So we went over a policy procedure, and Bob Coleman presented that one of the procedures should be that nobody in this town should be able to write a check over $50,000 without 2 signatures. And I think we should put that on the agenda for next month. We've been talking about it. It needs to get done. That's a really good idea. So that's something that we need to work on. They talked about Trio. That was quite a long conversation between that and Clear Dove. They decided they can't get rid of Trio. It would just be too much of a disaster. Also, the Finance Committee is supposed to be presenting once a month in front of the council. And even though the Finance Committee's only met 4 times this year, hopefully Bob Coleman will start doing that next month. And that's supposed to go on every month to let us know where we're at on our finances. So moving forward, that is something that needs to be done. I was the one that reached out to Cumberland County Public Records to get the 5,200 calls. Mike printed them all out. I didn't print them all out. I scrolled through it and just printed out a few. So basically what he's saying is the day deputies are averaging 5 or 6 calls a day, and the night deputies are averaging around 11 to 13, because obviously the 5,200 is 24 hours a day. It's not just what we're paying for. A lot of the calls repeat over and over. So a lot of traffic stops here on, I'll just go through this day, 6/2/2025. They did traffic stops from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 on Weymouth Road, stay off Weymouth Road. Then he went 4 hours and there was another call, suspicious. Then he went another 2 hours and he was off duty. So there isn't as many calls during the day for the deputies that we're paying for how much we're paying, versus what is on a 24-hour period. And it's also a lot of repeat calls. Property checks, 6/3, they did like 7 property checks, which hopefully Kevin can get up and explain what a property check is. I really don't know. I don't know if they're just driving through a lot, because it's all the same locations, high school, middle school, Walgreens, Big Apple, the Plaza. So they do that from like midnight till 5 in the morning. Then the other deputy comes in. So I think the police are of value to our community, but the cost has gotten overwhelmingly high. So there's a balance there, and hopefully moving forward we can figure the balance out. And that's all I have.
Ann?
Yeah, hi, sorry, my internet has been a little bit unstable, but for the Resiliency Committee, the chair, Sandy Carter, and I met with Heather Hunt of the Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District to discuss her interest in applying for 604B funds to do some more in-depth analysis of Thayer Brook and Pleasant River, which is one of the action items in the recently accepted watershed management plan. If we get that grant, it will put us in a good position to secure other more significant grant funds to help with restoration and protection once that plan is completed. Resiliency Committee just presented the Surface Water Protection Ordinance, did a great job in the workshop that preceded this meeting, so I won't go into detail on that. The Resiliency Committee will be at the Gray Community Day. In open space, Kristen is working on renewing the trail use permits that the town had executed with the plaza owner and the church for public access over their land, the trails. And I really want to thank her for her attention to that. The committee is still reviewing priorities for land conservation, and we're looking for new members. So if that's your thing, come join us. Open space will be a great community day. You can come talk to us there. Activities, I attended the GPCOG Vision Zero Advisory Committee meeting in April. Gray saw a decrease last year in vehicle-related injuries. Portland saw a big increase. GPCOG provided a really interesting presentation on roundabouts, which are more expensive to build up front, but far more cost-effective over the long term. So that was fascinating to learn about. I have been helping to draft a proposal to the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, MEAF, for roughly $475,000 to pay for the Maybury Road culvert. That grant is due next week. And we have money in the budget to pay for this, so that culvert will be replaced in the summer of 2028, regardless of whether or not we get this grant or not, but it could save us roughly $475,000 from the TIF funds that we've set aside for that. This will be a very competitive grant round. There's only $14 million in it, and they expect 100 applications, but we've been working hard to put together as compelling a proposal as we can. I just want to note that we had a presentation to the council earlier this year for our contractor medical reimbursement services, where we learned that Gray taxpayers have to cover $40,000 to $50,000 annually in emergency medical costs that insurance companies don't pay for, that result from like ambulance rides and things like that. Medical reimbursement also told us that other Cumberland County towns have created subscription insurance pools which benefit both the town and residents. I did some research on this, and we'll discuss this a bit later, but I just wanted people to know that I've made a formal referral to the council suggesting that we set up one of these in Gray. I think ultimately it will benefit the residents and save the town money. I think that's it for me. I think I just will note that while we're all sort of chiming in on the sheriff's contract, that I think what I've seen is that one of the biggest things that has made people angry about the contract is the way that it was done at the last minute with no public debate or input. And I'll just stop there.
No, I appreciate that, Ann, and I don't disagree with you with this. The timing of this is not appropriate. And I've been fighting since last July to get this done earlier.
No.
So,
Yeah, I think if we've learned one thing through the entire budget process is we obviously all agree we need to start a lot earlier to get a lot more feedback. Planning board meets on the 21st, Ordinance Advisory Committee, tentative 5/13, where we'll go over the zoning for the town and start that process. I did have the pleasure of attending the annual banquet for the fire station. Amazing group of people. I got to really talk to quite a few people and very impressed by the people that we have here in the town that are here to support us. I guess regarding the other thing is I did have a conversation with Tim Estes as well as several other of us the other day. There's a culvert on Taunton Road that is going to need replacement at some point, and they're very expensive. It's like $1.5 million. So always things you're driving over, you know it's under the ground, but we need to replace them. So it's always something that we need. That's why we need to be very responsible financially. You know, regarding the police department, one of my best friends is the chief of police, and I have a great respect for the police as well as I think all of us do. We're at a tough crossroads, and I think, first of all, I think all of us expect too much of the police. You can't snap their fingers and they're always going to be there. Regardless of whether we have dedicated or not, they have a lot of responsibility, a lot of ground to cover, and a lot of things to know and do. I think one thing we all need to look out for is I think we all need to maybe get to know our neighbors a little better if we don't. I think we all need to be a little bit better aware of our surroundings, and instead of walking and texting, which I'm as guilty as anybody else for, keep our heads up, be involved. And I think if we have an active community to do that, that's going to help us quite a bit. Unfortunately, we didn't have a decision didn't have a say in the decision they made to cut their ties with the contract with Government Nice. Our county increase this year is going up 16.18%. So we had to make some tough decisions. And again, as Mike stated, we are completely open to keeping the door open to looking at things. But right now, as many people that are vocal about it, I get as many people behind the scenes saying we're really struggling. And so it's a tough act to balance. But I appreciate law enforcement. I appreciate everybody in the town. And we are absolutely listening.
thank you. All right, Lauren, you're up.
Good evening. I just wanted to remind everybody that the annual volunteer awards banquet is being held on Tuesday, May 12th. The fourth annual Great Community Day is on Sunday, May 17th from 11:30 to 2:30 right here at in Town Hall, or at Town Hall. We invite you to stop by, meet your local community groups, churches, town committees, town representatives, and some staff. The Town Council Candidates Forum is going to be held on Tuesday, May 19th at 6:30 p.m. right here in Council Chambers. It's also going to be broadcast live on Facebook, YouTube, and Great Community Television. We have 5 candidates running for 2 open seats. Election Day is Tuesday, June 9th at New Begin Gym. The polls are open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. This week is Municipal Clerks Week, and the town recognizes the vital work of our municipal clerks, from maintaining official records, supporting elections, ensuring transparency, and keeping local government running smoothly. Their role is essential to our community every single day, so I invite you to join us in celebrating them. Thank them if you're in the office this week. And my final item is I also spoke to our Gray librarian, Andrea, about the unauthorized political handouts that they're finding. Andrea and her staff have implemented a variety of measures to remedy the current situation as well as prevent it from happening again. They're inspecting books upon arrival and when they're leaving. They've posted some signs asking patrons to report any non-library materials they find. There's a statement on the town's library Facebook page, and we're hoping, along with Andrea and her staff, that this will remedy the situation. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And we are going to have a presentation about our rebranding initiative by Kyle.
Hello, Town Council. Kyle Hadiniak, Director of Communications and IT. First of all, I just want to prologue this by saying in the back, I'm no longer alone because we have Abigail Anderson, who is our new media production coordinator, and so that's why I'm able to be out here tonight. And she is very well qualified and enthusiastic about the job, so I'm very excited for her to be on board. And if I need to run back there for a quick second, that's why, but I'm sure we'll be just fine. So, Gray's rebranding project. You may be asking why I choose to do this. Well, conversations between staff beginning in 2024 and continuing into 2025 noted the perks of such a rebranding. Because what can happen when you rebrand something, an organization, is you can re-energize how that organization is viewed by the community, by those who work for it. It can build community trust, and it can professionalize town resources in a way that we might not have been able to do before. The only branded materials we have before today is the town seal, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. That is not going away. It will coexist with what we have developed. And we also had a simple style guide that just simply noted some colors we used and some fonts. And it was sufficient, but it wasn't as good as it could be. So we wanted to have Gray have a new visual identity so that it could benefit the town in that way. So the process we decided upon was to solicit RFPs for rebranding services, and this began in the summer of 2025. And the hiring committee, which included myself, landed on Portland Design Company out of Portland as the most professional, most experienced, and clearly the best value candidate for this job. So we picked them, and I'm very glad we did. We then convened a steering committee that consisted of some town staff and some local business owners to get a thorough understanding of what we thought the community, or how the community viewed our town. What values do we associate with Gray? What landmarks? What visual iconography? So the job of the committee was to work with the Portland Design Company and help shepherd that design process along. And from the very beginning, even from the earliest conversations about this, we wanted to ensure that whatever we landed on reflected the town's values. And to that end, we asked for community input on a bunch of things. So right from the beginning, when we launched this initiative in November of 25, we sent out a public poll, and many community members responded, and we asked them what they thought Gray's visual identity should consist of, what it consists of now. And I can tell you the clock tower is a famous landmark around here. And association with nature is also a big deal for us. So that was extremely helpful in shepherding this creation process. And we also went into the branding process with the idea of changing or choosing the town's official tagline. And that went not as we expected, which is great, because we listened to many people say, hey, we like "at the heart of it all" as the tagline. And so we put that to a community vote too, and it passed handedly, and that's what we landed on. So I'm happy to be joined today by two people from Portland Design Company, LK and Abby. They can come up here and introduce themselves. They were extraordinarily helpful in getting this process along, and they will present the deliverables that we have for this project.
Hi, I'm LK. I own Portland Design Co. This is Abby.
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks for having us.
Oh, there's a slideshow. Okay, so, sorry, hold
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is your new brand, if you haven't seen it yet. It's a... Look at that. Swag. Nice. Abby and I have had the opportunity to work together on a range of municipal branding projects, including Portland, South Portland, Vancouver, Washington, Ellsworth, Monson, and we've just been awarded Augusta, along with clients in other sectors like hospitality, law, and small business. So this isn't our first rodeo, but it was a lot of fun working with the town of Gray. Across that work, the focus is really on consistency, creating clear, cohesive brand systems that help organizations communicate more consistently and confidently across everything they produce.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to talk you guys, I'm Abby, thanks for having us. I was just going to talk you guys through the deliverables here. So we have up on the screen the primary brand elements, and I'm going to kind of play a video that sort of walks us through the brand guidelines. Oh, thank you so much. That's where they are. Perfect. Okay. So essentially what we wanted to do is create a logo system that, you know, like Kyle mentioned, you only had the city seal, and having a logo that you can scale down, having a word mark only version, which is just the type, or having the ability to pull the image out and put it on merch, and make sure that the town people and the staff are able to use these consistent branding elements is just going to reflect better, you know, on the town. So I think, you know, what we've included in the brand guidelines is, of course, you're seeing on screen various logo variations here. So you'll have instances where you need a horizontal or a stacked mark, the word mark on its own, and it's essentially, sorry, Kyle, I think I'm, oh, there we go, okay.
Just popping up on your own, I guess.
Okay, so press, and then it'll just play automatically, right?
Yeah, hit it one more time.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna kind of show you guys here is the brand style guide. And this is a document that we put together that kind of encompasses everything within the brand. So it talks about logos, color palette, brand typography that, you know, all the staff people will use, and really covers how the brand translates across things like print, how you might apply it to signage. And we created department-specific logos, so each department now has their own logo kit. And the goal of this is to make the brand easy to use and consistent over time. So whether materials are being created internally or externally, you guys have a set brand standards that show you what colors to use, what logos to use, and also what not to do. So we're going through some of the incorrect usage pages right now, even though it's going pretty quick, but yeah, so that's the brand style guide. And then one thing we often talk about with municipal projects like this is that it's more than a logo. So for a town, you want a system that's showing up everywhere. So eventually signage might get updated, vehicles, internal documents, just really freshens up how the town is communicating with the public. Yeah. And then I think we also wanted to mention that it's pulling all pieces into alignment, so it's creating like a nice shared visual language that's based on Pennell Clock Tower and the surrounding landscape. So it's something that, you know, if you have merch at the community day, for example, it just helps the town people feel connected, especially when, you know, they can rep some cool swag like that. So if you guys have any questions, I don't know if we're opening it to questions at all, but happy to kind of answer anything.
Just to follow up real quickly, so the rollout for this stuff can happen over time. It does not have to, we don't have to toss out, you know, current good signs. We can wait until they're decrepit and then we can replace them. Immediate changes we can make are very easy, including social media, banners, profile icons, department letterheads, of which we now have individual ones for each department, which is very nice. Those are easy to implement, and then we can do the other things later on as we need to.
Yeah, that was just, you know, I think the council, if you guys want to talk, but I think that's the big thing for me is that I think how my comment would be, I think, as anything electronic, immediate. You know, business cards, anytime you order new ones, have it, things like that. As you know, as they start needing to order new shirts and things like that that they need, not just buy them because they want them, you know, then you know, do that. Like I'm looking at this right here logo, you know, in a few years, you know, but maybe you should come up with a budget and say, okay, these are what we would have to replace, and this is the cost, and over 5 years, this would be the total cost divided, because I always like to budget things out over years, so it's not all hit in 1 year. And I think that would be helpful if you had a cost of, you know, what it would cost us to replace all of that stuff over a certain time frame. That would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Ian?
I love the color schemes, thank you, and I love the images as well. It doesn't surprise me at all that those two things rose to the top, so that's really neat. And yeah, I concur with what Mike just said. I think it makes sense. All the electronic stuff can happen right away, and the other stuff can happen as stuff needs to get upgraded or replaced. So it makes sense to me. And thanks a lot for your work. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken?
I don't really have too much to say about this. I do like the pen o'clock. I think you guys did a good job. I've been following it on Facebook, though. It didn't look like too many people wanted a new rebranding, so can you kind of explain why you went through with this?
Sure. So Gray has never really had, let's just say its current branding is probably quite old.
Okay.
And from time to time, after major events and such, an organization may want to rebrand itself to kind of represent itself to the community, kind of energize it a little more, and now's a great time.
Okay. And I see I was scrolling through the pictures there. Is there anything in there about the wildlife park? Did you ever think about incorporating that into anything?
That was, if I remember correctly, that was a key landmark. I think above all, though, the Panel Clock Tower represents a sense of history.
Oh, without a doubt.
That the community really finds valuable.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's why it landed where it is, nice and prominent.
That's all I have.
Vince?
Well, I'm glad we kept at the heart of it all, because I think
Yeah.
that's good. I know one person who's going to be very happy, and that's going to be Doug Webster.
Yeah. Doug was in here today, and he saw
Oh,
this
was he?
stuff. Yeah.
He approved?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks, it does look refreshed. It looks nice. I mean, kind of letting it sink in a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, I'm with Mike. 'Cause I'm always about the dollar and being financially responsible, and I just want to make sure that as things roll out, cars needed, et cetera, that we just
Yeah.
do it properly and we don't jump the gun on anything and don't buy anything ahead of time until it's needed.
Sure.
You do that, I'm happy.
No, good job, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
good job.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
All right. All right.
That's nice.
Now we're going to go to the public comment of the non-agenda items. The public is invited to address the council on items of business not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. We just want to make a note to the citizens, you have the right and are encouraged to speak during the public comment regarding items not on the agenda or regarding an item at the time in which it does appear on the agenda prior to the council beginning its deliberation. All comments and questions during public comment or an agenda item are limited to no more than 3 minutes. Anyone in attendance or in person remotely who wishes to speak will have an opportunity to speak once. The chair may allow any person who has already addressed the council during the public comment on the agenda item or during a public hearing to speak again, but only to clarify a point or share a new and previously unheard point of view. This is not intended as a time for debate. The chair will close public comment as soon as there's no more information being presented. If you want to call in, you can call in to 469-708-0487. I guess my time's up. Meeting ID 217-981-903 hashtag. So I think we've got two gentlemen here that I would like to make a priority because they've been sitting patiently for almost an hour. So if you guys want to speak, please get up. Please.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Joyce. I'm the Cumberland County Sheriff. This is my first time regarding this issue to be here. This kind of came up while I was on 2-week vacation, and there were 2 meetings, and my chief deputy and captain did a really good job, and they were actually very politically correct in their presentation. I may not be, I don't know. I'm very disappointed in some of the things that have been said during these meetings. First of all, if you have a question, I'm not that difficult to find. I'm in Portland, pretty much work every day. In fact, pretty much work every day of the week. Some folks have my number and call me on weekends, and I usually get back to them. I want to talk about the tax rate, because I've heard today it's 16%. Last time it was something else. As far as I know it, and I'm not responsible for setting the budget, that's the county commissioners, but the increase that was sent out is 13.5%, not 16. There was a comment about ICE. Folks, for about 12 months, I attended county commissioner meetings. I didn't see anyone there. Yet there were 125 to 150 people that had the county commissioner's ears every meeting talking about how I'm such a bad guy for holding ICE inmates, and the fact that we're forced sterilizing people that are being held there, and the fact that I'm communist, and the commissioners, but I was the one holding them. Some of these folks that came every meeting were not even Cumberland County residents. In fact, there were some that I could tell. They didn't care about the tax increase because that's on the property taxpayers, and you got to own property in Cumberland County to be charged that. And these were kids in high school, just out of college, but they had the county commissioners there for a year. Then came January 22nd, when one of my corrections officers got picked up by ICE. Now, let's go back. In February of 25, I was in DC and told by Tom Holman, who's the border czar, we're going to lock up the borders. Okay, and get behind that. And we're going to arrest the worst of the worst and get them locked up and out of the country. Yeah, I can get behind that too. But during this time, this 12 months, there were people claiming that other people were getting arrested, or mostly it was kidnapped. So again, going back to January of 2022, one of my corrections officers who in November went to Texas to satisfy his immigration needs, an individual that I had polygraphed, so I know what he had done or not done, got picked up by ICE. And I didn't like the tactics, and I called him out on it, because that's what I do. I was embarrassed as a police officer to see some of that stuff. So they didn't like my feedback, and immediately they pulled the ICE inmates. So currently, we don't hold any ICE inmates. Not because of the commissioners, not because of me, it's just they've chosen not to use us. But at some point, they could come back. The commissioner's decision not to charge ICE is not binding on me. You folks elected me to look after public safety, and the law requires me to hold ICE inmates, and I will hold ICE inmates if they are the worst of the worst. They've committed a crime, and they're in the process of being removed. I've gone public to say those who are asylees, we need to find a way forward so they can be successful too. Because locking up an asylee is like one of my guys locking somebody up for going 26 miles an hour in a 25-mile zone. Yes, it's illegal, but we just don't do that. You know, so there's a difference between criminal and illegal, and you need to vet that up. Folks, if this is about money, bring it on. I mean, just let me know. I mean, I can accept that. I can't accept my staff being persecuted for what people think or don't think is in the logs, because there's a lot of things that I don't even know what they're doing, But I'm big on public safety, staying busy, and customer service. So what isn't in those reports is some of the things that they might be doing, like out chatting with somebody at McDonald's or Cumberland Farms or whatever. So again, if this is about money, I'm a big boy, I'm all set with that. I think the public needs to vote on it because it's a head scratcher that in January, we were told that you want a contract for a third deputy, and we start working on that, and all of a sudden, 3 months later, it's not, well, we don't want that third deputy, which, okay, makes sense. You know what? We wanted it, but we can't afford it, we take that away. But to do away with it all and throw the baby out with the bathwater, as a person elected to look at public safety for Cumberland County, that's a problem. You know, I've looked at all of the towns that have 8,000 people or 8,200 people. And all of them either have a police department or a contract. Some people will say, if you've got a town that has a Dunkin' Donuts and a Hannaford, generally you have a police department or a contract. Some towns, like Bridgeton, that have 5,000 people, think that, you know, they want a police department. And that's their choice. I will tell you, hiring cops these days are pretty difficult because it's pretty hard to sell a position when you have to work nights, weekends, and holidays. People are not knocking down our doors, especially when people want to work 40 hours a week, and that's it. This is a job that requires you pretty much to be on call at any point. I've heard that and I heard it tonight, you know, the 580,000. And I put a Facebook post on today because I'm getting calls. I was at a Mariners game a couple weeks ago, and 6 people came up while I was sitting watching the game. People that live in Gray telling me that this is crap and we're going to make sure that there's a contract. So I put that post out so that people get the real skinny. I've heard 700,000. You know, last year, the town manager wanted us doing traffic details and stuff like that. That isn't figured into that. If you set aside 700,000, that's your choice. What we expect for the service is the 580,000. And what does that entail? Well, right now it entails the 2 that are working here. The third one, we're not charging you because it isn't filled and he's not working there, or she is. And then it also includes June, July, and August of patrol, where the SRO comes out of the school and he works, it's a he now, will work. So that's 160 hours. If all of those positions are filled, June, July, and August, 160 hours out of a possible 168 hours in a week. Other people, police departments, chiefs have called me. They've told me that if this goes away, they will not be the primary responders to Gray. Yes, you'll still get coverage. I've told people before, people like hearing it. Your county taxpayers, your county taxes pay for you to get general revenue, which is like basic cable. Nothing fancy, you get some channels. But if you want that dedicated service, that police person that is in your town, that's going to know the town, and that is going to be focusing on issues of the town, that's a contract. That is called HBO or Cinemax, for those of you that remember that.
Kevin,
you don't lose basic...
I don't mean to cut you off, bud, but you've at 9 minutes now. I'll give you another 3 minutes if you want to wrap it up.
Okay. So you don't lose anything. What you're going to get if the contract goes, and I'm not here to scare anybody or threaten people, but this is it. You're going to have one guy covering 4 towns. And in some cases, he's also or she's also responsible for calls in the off-season on Chesapeake Island. So you'll get service. You might have to wait, depending on it. We will prioritize what those calls are and send people. But the police departments have told us, if your guy is coming from Casco and there's a personal injury accident in front of Hannaford on 26, they're not going to come. We're going to send the deputy and he'll get there. And I just want you folks to know that, because I don't want to hear after that, my office, well, you didn't respond quick enough. It's what we got. It's what we got. I hear about mileage on vehicles. One individual was concerned because the deputy was out for 4 or 5 months and his car was parked in the yard. Yet, on the one hand, we were concerned about mileage in the vehicles. Short of putting taxi cab meters in there, I can't keep track of. It works itself out. So a lot of this information coming around is very disappointing and frustrating, because I'm a call away, I respond very quickly, and I think the taxpayers need to decide what type of public safety you need, because us sending a deputy to Wyndham or Cumberland or whatever is much like your fire department doing mutual aid. It's been going on for years, and I hear that as well as a concern. So that's my speech. I'll answer any questions.
Kevin, I think the only thing that I want to say, a couple things just to address, about the mileage. I heard this gentleman say, it evens out. How? I don't understand that. There's only one other town in this area that pays for sheriffs. So how is it fair for Gray to pay for every time they go to New Gloucester? How is it fair for every time they go to Yarmouth and North Yarmouth and all these other towns when they don't pay for it themselves? Kevin, I think the world of you. You're a great guy, but why should Gray always get stuck paying the bill?
Do you want Yarmouth and North Yarmouth and all those other places to bill you for any time that they come here?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
that's a management nightmare.
Well, I guess my thing is, Kevin, is that I think that we'll work with you, and I would love to work with you in these other towns, but Gray's got to stop paying for everything. Every time we see the sheriffs, they're sitting on the Gray Raymond line and the Gray New Gloucester line. There's usually at least 2 of them, if not 3, right, talking to each other. Mm-hmm. All right?
Yep.
I mean, they don't seem that busy, Kevin. All right? And, and I do think they do a valuable job. I'm not saying that at all. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't have to pay for that ourselves. And when you look through these reports, I spent hours, and I tried to get this in Excel format so I could actually give better data, because I'm all about data. It was an average of 5 calls a day, and the times that we paid for, there was usually at least 1 hang-up. There was policing, where they drive over to this place, that place. There was very little actual work being done. And I'm not saying that they don't, but from this data, and I have to go back to these guys. And to me, it's $700,000. You might only charge us $580, but I have to pay for the gas. Okay, it's only $25,000, and I've got it right here. It's only $25,000, Kevin, for the extra stuff. It's the cost of the car, it's the cost of the gas. I have to give the real numbers. All right, and I'm not saying you're giving your numbers, but I have to present those numbers to the public. So, you're making it sound like it.
I just want to point out this wasn't, citizen comments or public comments are not supposed to be a real back and forth. And I'd say you've long exceeded any 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin, we do appreciate you. I think I would love to work with you to get an ad hoc committee together. I think that we do need some service. I think that these citizens need to figure out what we need. It's not up to me, that's for sure. I'm not the only person in this town. But like you said earlier, how you get all these people that were feeding into the commissioner? That's all I've gotten this year, was fire and fire and fire. That's all I've heard up until now, okay? And then I've only gotten 1 day to vote, all right? So that's what I did. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hi, my name is Maureen Gilbert, and Mike, you and I did email, and I would like to thank Sheriff Joyce, because many of my notes I don't have to say because you said everything I'm thinking. I don't agree with a lot of what you're calling data, because myself, I'm a data person, and You said, well, I see them sitting on the New Gloucester line. Well, I see them responding to a body behind the plaza within minutes. Now, say we don't have this public safety with the contract, and they are out on Chebeac Island. How long is it going to take to get somebody to address the fact that we have a body behind the plaza? So I disagree with you vehemently as to what you're calling data. I just don't agree with it. I think what you really, none of you are understanding, is that you did not ask us what we think. In 2018, it was a separate warrant. You're smiling at me, so I feel like you're thinking that I'm wrong. So in 2018, the town voted through separate warrants to have a contract with the Sheriff's Department. In 2025, we voted to add a deputy. At this point, you did not add this to a warrant. How many of the 7,000 voters understand that if they vote yes in the budget, we will no longer have contracted deputies? It's being kind of snuck in, honestly. That's how I feel, that you are sneaking it in. I'm pretty angry about this, as you can tell. This decision should not have been made within a week. I understand what you're saying, the process needs to change, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter to me what the process is. What matters to me is that you all made the decision with no public input. There was no transparency. And you're saying, oh, let's look into this. Let's form an ad hoc committee. Before the contract was rescinded, that should have happened. I don't know what you're talking about with 700,000 because fuel is included in the 500. And I'm sorry, I would like to finish because I can tell you're really not happy with what I'm saying. The way this has gone down is wrong. And you are paid to actually work for the citizens. And you're not. This is a huge problem. And it needs to be added back in, and I know that it will not be because you needed to do this within 45 days. I'm going to vote no because I do not want this budget to pass. And I think that you really should listen to Sheriff Joyce, who really, really understands the situation. Do I think we're going to become crime-laden? Did you know that there's drugs on Whitney Road? Did you know that there's theft on other roads? You don't know that. You're looking at this day and that day. I don't think that you're qualified to make that decision without more input, more time. You don't make this decision in a week. You look at this over a year. So in the next year, okay, you want to pull it? I've got this to back it up. You have nothing to back up this decision.
I'm sorry, man, but your time's up.
Okay, I'm good though.
All right, thank you.
Actually.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ryan Keith, Northeast Soil Trackers. I know this is an issue that we talked about last time, and I think I've come up with a solution that I'd like you guys to entertain. So essentially, we can't keep up with state statutes. They change all the time. There's thousands of them. There's a state statute that says that we can't create an ordinance to disallow solar for our residents unless there's a health or safety concern. With a solar tracker, because it's new technology, an ordinance went into place just a year ago that limited us to 15 feet in height. I don't think a lot of people knew of our system. It's new. And so with that, I've hired an attorney to put an opinion together for you guys that maybe you can utilize that ordinance violates state statute, which makes that vote null and void, and that would get us to our time frame limitation. So that ordinance went into place limiting 15 feet, null and void. I've also put together some language from other towns, surrounding towns, that maybe we could utilize with the ordinance review committee and take this through that process and allow pole mount systems to be added to your ordinance, leaving the ground mount 15 foot, which is legitimate for that type of system. So with the opinion from the attorney. I'm hoping that the council can put it to the town's attorney, agree with the attorney, hopefully, and then let us move forward in a timely manner and get these systems in for your residents. And I'm here to answer any questions to help the process along. Again, we sent many emails with statute, the attorney's opinion, and some language. Is the council going to have any questions for me?
We can't answer questions on the comments, but sorry.
Unfortunately.
Right. That's it. Thanks.
But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, you coming up?
Please.
Doesn't matter. Fran, you want to go? Okay. Fran, why don't you come sit over here? That way. Okay.
Hi, my name's Pat Brown. I live on Charlotte 8. I just have kind of a couple of open-ended questions that you may or may not be able to answer because I know it's public comment time. But my first question is, when you were researching the police sheriff's department issue, was there any conversation or any information regarding if we do vote to not have, or we pass the budget, which means we don't have the sheriff for the next fiscal year, is there any cost involved in reinstating them for the following year? Just any upfront cost to the town for doing that? I was just curious as to whether that...
I just want to make a comment. Best thing for you to do is send us an email, and I can get all that research done, because I don't know all the answers to stuff. That's why this is just public comment.
I just didn't know if you perhaps have hit upon that in your research.
So just send an email, and we'll get some research, and we'll get back to you, okay?
My second question is a different one. It's procedural. If the budget fails to pass at the polls, what are the next steps for the town? How do things proceed?
Again, this isn't public comment. This is just public comment, so just send an email and we'll get back to you, okay?
I understand that, but I think all the voters would like to know what that might be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It's going to be a little difficult. First of all, I'm going to address to the council, but I guess I'm referring to the comments that were made about people not coming to the hearings with the commissioner, which, during the day, students and all that, sure, they can go, but the people who have to pay the tax bill, it's very difficult to get to all these meetings. So I kind of, resent the fact that it wasn't a thorough statement. Also, I felt sitting there listening to the presentation that is being threatened. If you don't do it my way, we're going to not provide. That's okay, leave it there. I can get it, I'm done. That if you don't give us what we want, we're going to even take away what we already do, limit what we're already doing. That's the impression I got as I sat here. And I think there's a big misconception sometimes about when you make a phone call, and this is a very personal situation, so I'm going to try to get through it. Kevin Joyce does not know that last 4 years ago in August, well, my husband was dying on the front steps of my home. It took a long time for rescue to come. And on top of that, the sheriff showed up, but it was probably about a half an hour later. And so, people think that they're secure and that they'll get service when they call for the service. And hopefully I'm the only one in this town that that's happened to. And no one else has to experience this in the future. But that's the fact. Even though we were paying extra to have that service provided to us, it didn't happen. So think about that when you're thinking about how much the cost is. What are we paying for, really? I think that it's just a misconception. I really wanted to get that out there because, they could be the people with sheriffs that we're paying for could also be on a call into Gloucester and not able to come to Gray. That was assigned to us. So, I mean, this is the reality of what's happening. So it's almost like a crapshoot, and we're paying that extra money for it. Anyway, so that's what I had to say tonight. Not an easy subject, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fran.
Sir? Yep, come on.
I spoke about this probably 2 meetings ago. And it appears that things have not gone the way I hoped. The old logo, First Woolen Mill, has gone away. It has been replaced by a new logo. Within limits, I'm okay with whatever you guys decide. But the truth is, I really liked the old logo. I really liked the old tagline. I think a majority of people in this town did, and that if they actually voted on it in something other than a Facebook poll, the old logo would win. But I have a bigger problem with the new logo right now, and that is it is illegible. That is, there are characters in it that simply don't have enough pixels to resolve to normal vision. And that needs to be fixed at the very least. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Chair Johnson, members of the council. Rick Light from 35 France Circle. Just a couple things, I'll be brief. One is something I brought up before that I wanted to remind the council about if they would take a look at and maybe take some action on is, you know, the crosswalk on 115 near Hancock, the corner of Hancock, at the triangle there, let's call it. There's no, that's a really dangerous crosswalk. We talked about this before. I talked about it before, where people come from Brown Street over to Hancock and take that crosswalk. And there's no crosswalk signage with the arrow. There's no crosswalk signage. And that is, I think everyone in this room knows, people cruise down 115 at about 40 miles an hour. Don't pay attention to the 30. So anyway, I just mentioned that again. If that's something the council could look into and maybe mitigate that would be terrific for public safety purposes. Yep. Two, just going to speak briefly about the sheriff's issue in the contract. Whether I support it or not isn't really important, because I actually do support having, you know, public service, public safety in the town. But as some of the other speakers talked about, I was at the meeting on the 7th of April, and I was disappointed on the fact that the idea of a warrant, because it was brought to the town by a warrant, was dismissed very quickly. And the vote to basically discontinue was done towards the end of the meeting in a very sort of, use the word covert manner. So I think because of that, I think a lot of people are misinformed or uninformed. I'm pretty much misinformed on a lot of the detail, but I don't do Facebook and never will. I don't get my information that way. But I just think in a general sense, because we don't have, you know, a town paper, we do have the great town, you know, the website paper, but I don't think people understand that our public safety is being decimated to basically a resource officer for 3 months in the summer. That's the bottom line. That's the truth of it all. So I just think it's something to think about. I wish there was a way we could go back and make that clear. I think that ship has sailed, as I understand it, in terms of the warrant and what's been issued. So those are my 2 points. Hopefully we can resolve this and get some level of public safety back to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, would you send an email? You can send it to me.
Sure.
Just on the crosswalk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Would anybody else like to come up to speak?
Lacey Anderson of Lake Avenue. When I think of public safety, a lot of what I hear people saying is speeding, speeding, speeding. And I myself would love to see the speed limit reduced and people not speed through town. But if having sheriff duty doesn't really stop that because it still continues and they're not there on days that they're not there, speeding is something we need to address quicker than getting the village transportation project in place. There's got to be other things we can do to make people feel safer, walking, driving, running, you name it. Our streets aren't safe because of this speeding, and that's the safety that I'm really concerned about, because hopefully other things don't happen as badly as other cities. I'm not saying they don't, but speeding is, I think, our number one thing about safety. And so I was going to come up to talk about, there's these radar signs on 115 and 100 that would flash and tell you how fast you're going, and neither of them work. And I don't know why they're not working, but they're not working, and I was excited to get them, but they're not working, so I'd like to know why they're not working.
Again,
you don't have to answer, but...
No, if you could send an email, this is great information, just so I don't forget, and we'll...
The speeding.
Yes, absolutely.
I do have the answer for that, so I will give it to Vinny when you email him. All right, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up to speak?
Howdy. My name is Ashley Zimmerman. I'm at 87 Blueberry Lane. I just think that the most concerning and important issue with this whole sheriff thing is the fact that there's been a severe lack of community involvement in it. And with this decision to defund and dismantle the patrol, the voters voted to establish this and later expand it, so we should be the only ones allowed to make this decision on if we're going to have it or not. Plain and simple. This is quite literally overturning the will of the majority of voters, and that's not a net positive for the community. That's bad. Last year we voted to expand the patrol. I think it was like a 6% majority. So nothing about that indicates that a majority of voters wanted the entire thing cut, let alone without having any say in the matter. And I keep hearing a lot of justifications for the cut, but I've yet to hear much about why we're not being given the opportunity to just vote on this directly as a separate warrant article. The closest thing I've heard has been something to the effect of, well, the people elected the council majority with a clear mandate to make broad sweeping cuts any and everywhere, but in that same election, and that falls apart immediately, because in that same election, a majority of voters voted to expand the patrol. So that's not logically consistent at all. And nothing about that indicates that a majority wanted the whole thing canceled, let alone without having a say in the matter. That's just very basic tenets of democracy, and it's really kind of a slap in the face to the voters who came out and voted and made a clear decision. So, we've been assured that going forward, the community will be involved in helping to guide the direction of our law enforcement needs, but that community involvement can and should just be happening right now, and it's not. And with the rationale of needing to make cuts to keep the budget flat as the years go on and inflation continues to exist and the cost of everything goes up, and with the discounting the need to even have a level of expanded coverage in the first place is like another kind of contradictory thing I've heard. I doubt that we're going to see that in the foreseeable future, because it doesn't seem like the council or people running for the council want any sort of expanded coverage. So, if anyone listening doesn't like the way this is going, shameless plug, I'm running for town council, and you can vote for me and Linda Marie Jaramillo on Tuesday, June 9th. And we'll hopefully restore some sanity and be able to get the will of the voters back at the forefront. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Andy Barheit, 45 Knudsen Road. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me speak at this point, but I'll be brief. I agree with Ashley. He said it much better than I could. The law enforcement issue, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, the agency was removed from the people, and that is the most important thing for me. We were not given the opportunity to choose. And when I was here in the March meeting, that public comment phase was before any of these cuts were even discussed, so we couldn't comment on it at that time. That was something we were sitting here and heard for the first time. It was not in anything that we saw prior to the meeting, so there was no agency for us at that point, and we had no opportunity beyond that point to comment. because of the way the structure works. So that's my opinion on that. I think that we need to take a vote on this as a separate article. Personally, I would be in favor of it, but that is just bring it back to the people, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Fuller, Yarmouth Road. First of all, I'd like to thank all the town clerks. I think when I go in, I always get excellent service, and I just thank you all for serving the public. It's not an easy job, so I just wanted to say thank you to all our town clerks. The next thing I'd kind of like to talk about is a new policy. I know in the school department that if there is a school board member, their spouse cannot work for the school. And I know there's some area towns that have policies that if somebody works for the town, they can't be on the town council because it's a huge conflict of interest. In here, it would cause like a 2-2 vote. It could cause a lot of problems. You can't get anything done or voted on because of conflict of interest, and they would have to step back. And I know other towns do have a policy, and I think it would be important that we look into that and get a policy made that if someone works for the town, they can't be on the council, or if they're on the council, they can't be hired by the town, because that would be getting insider information if their spouse works here and they're on the council. So I was just wondering if you could look into that and make a policy. I know other towns have it. I would appreciate that. And I'd also like to talk about the branding. I love our woolen mill, and the first woolen mill in America, we're gonna let that go down the drain? I don't know, that was my comment. I'm with that gentleman. I really enjoy like our woolen mill, and that has been our signature. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, I will email you. I do have an answer for you. We did check into it with the attorney. Okay, thank you. Anybody online that would like to ask any questions? Anybody else in the audience? Going once, twice? All right, we are going to move on. Thank you. All right, all right, now I lost my place. You have the sheet here. There we go. All right, thanks. That's all right. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. All right, so there is no old business to be presented, so we're going to go to new business. We're going to go to resolve. There's one reading. Resolve 2526-40, the North Yarmouth Code Enforcement Contract Termination. Motion, be it resolved that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the termination of the professional services agreement for code enforcement officers effective May 6, 2026. Do we have a motion? A motion, Vince. Do we have a second? Second, Ken. We are going to open up to the floor to the public for any discussion about this motion. And if anybody, what it is we are no longer going to be sending our code enforcement officers over to North Yarmouth. We have enough going on here that we feel that it's better to keep them here, so we are terminating that contract. Does anybody have any comments about that? Okay. Then I'm going to open up the floor discussion to the, Ann, do you have any comments?
I think we've discussed this, and I think we're in agreement that it's time to sever this or to stop this contract. And my understanding was that we were going to ride it out. I couldn't remember whether it was through the end of this fiscal year or when we were going to exactly stop it. But yeah, I thought we'd already agreed on this, actually.
Yeah, I did too. So yeah, I'll find out exactly when, but I think it's till July 1st. It's till tomorrow.
It's earlier.
Yeah,
What happened was they found a code enforcement officer,
okay,
so
perfect.
they asked if they could stop it a little early.
Oh, perfect.
And that's great. Then we have our people back quicker.
Awesome. All right. Excellent.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right. Thank you. Good. Ken.
I'm all set. I'm all for it also.
Vince.
Let's go.
All right. Can I just go to unanimous consent?
Yep.
Everyone agree? All right. Excellent. All right. We are going to go to resolve 2526-41, the interim town manager union negotiation team appointment. I have a motion, be it resolved that the town council hereby appoints the interim town manager to serve the town's collective bargaining negotiation team for negotiations with the AFSCME, replacing the former interim appointee. Do I have a motion?
Right here.
Okay, do I have a second, Vince?
Second?
Second Ann, I'm gonna go with her. I am gonna open up the floor to public discussion on the motion. Do we have any? Okay, do we have any from the council? Ann, do you have any comments?
Good to go.
This works for me.
Can I just go to unanimous consent then?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Resolve, let's see, 2526-42, which is the interim town manager alternate delegate appointment. Motion be resolved that the town of Gray, the Gray Town Council hereby appoints the interim town manager to serve as the town of Gray's alternate delegate to the Greater Portland Council of Governments, GPCOG, the General Assembly, replacing the former interim appointee. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Ken.
Second.
Second by Vince. I am going to open up to the public. Does anybody have any? Okay. I'm going to open up anybody, councilors have any comments or questions?
None.
All right, I'm just going to move to unanimous consent. Excellent. All right, so the next one, we need one reading as well. Order 2526-32, the transfer of the unspent balance of the fiscal year 27 economic development budget to the general fund. Motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the transfer of the unspent balance of the fiscal year 27 economic budget to the general fund. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Ken, second by Vince. I'm going to open this up to the floor for public discussion. Is there anybody in the public that would like to talk? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lisa Lena Gilmore, 208 Portland Road. I don't know how much that money is, but we were going to take some money away from the land use to pay off something. Can that go there instead of taking money away from land use?
I think this is, you can answer that one, yeah.
It actually can't because it is TIF money, so it has to be designated for certain things, so we cannot replace, you're asking if we can replace the land acquisition fund money or take it from here instead?
Yeah, you're taking money away from the land acquisition to use it somewhere else.
Right, this money's not authorized because it's TIF money, so we can't use it. Can't use the money in the, from the TIF for that fire truck that you're.
So do you know what a TIF is? Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Okay, so that can only be
No,
used for
that's
certain.
not my question.
No, I understand what your question is. I just want to make sure.
Putting this money in the general fund, can that be used instead of taking money away that was dedicated to the land use?
No, what we're doing is moving.
Because it's TIF money.
Okay, so we'll move, yeah, it's economic development, TIF money,
Right.
being moved to the general fund, okay?
All right,
So,
all right.
okay.
Thanks.
All right, no problem. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
The amount.
You know,
The amount will not be known until the end of the fiscal year. So what happens is, this is actually for FY '27. This was not voted on last year, so currently whatever we don't use in the economic development budget, FY '26 will automatically roll into will automatically stay in the TIF. So what this does, and there's no right or wrong decision, it's just council decision. What this does is allows the council to say, for the FY '27 budget, which is still, hasn't been voted on, if at the end of the year, there is money remaining in the economic development line, that will be transferred to the general fund to be used for expenditures. Either that, or it can stay in the TIF, but we do have a few TIFs that are coming down that we need to spend the money on, so we only have 3 years after they end to spend it. So, you know, that's the decision that needs to be made.
and I think the big thing is, Fran, is to your point, you know, over the last few months, is we're trying to clean this stuff up, right? We're trying to do the right thing. There's been so many things in the past that just have not been done right, and we're trying to do it right now, you know, and it's going to take a while. Okay? Anybody? Ann, do you have any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ken?
No, I'm all set.
Vince? Okay. Can, so everyone else in the public, sorry. Okay, can I just go to unanimous consent on this one as well? All right, thank you. Order 2526 -33, fiscal year 27, the capture rate for the Route 100 Municipal Tax Increment Financing District. Motion, be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the fiscal year 27 capture rate of 0% for the Route 100 Municipal Tax Increment Finance TIF District. I'm going to do a motion. Do I have a motion? No, explain. For Vince, second. Ken?
Second.
All right. Can you explain this? I think that would be helpful.
So what this would mean is when we have a TIF district or a tax increment financing district, the increase in the value, that tax amount gets captured and it gets set aside for certain projects that are authorized by the state. This TIF district, the South Gray Route 100 TIF district, it has 2 years left, so it's got FY27 and FY28 before it ends. The balance in that TIF district would need to be spent within 3 years of the expiration, so 2031. In order to, twofold, in order to put some money back in the general fund to help offset the budget and to ensure that that balance in the TIF district doesn't increase to the point where we're going to have difficulty spending it within the 3 years. The proposal is to not capture any of that value in FY27 and let that go to the general fund instead. Is that?
No, that's perfect.
So for example, next year we want to buy a truck, and it's $100,000. We could use this money to pay for said truck, whereas if it was TIF money, if it was in the town 10% of the time, maybe we could use 10% and pay 10 grand of it. So it gives us a lot more flexibility as a town to take that money as general money to use whatever we want to use it for, such as putting money back in the land trust fund.
Okay. So, yeah, you're welcome to get up. Yeah, we just want to explain it first, and you can.
I hope this isn't out of order, but so does that mean that therefore that particular amount of money is no longer within the TIF for that fiscal year?
Yeah.
What if we need it for the TIF?
But we have another TIF. This TIF is running out.
I understand, but isn't that TIF, don't we have to do certain dedicated things within that TIF? If something comes up in that area of development?
So this is the Route 100 TIF, which it's been in effect for 28 years. It has 2 years left. There are no development projects within that development plan that need to be funded.
But what if something comes up next year?
So I understand your question. If something comes up next year, it would have to be an authorized project, for one. We'd use the existing money that's in that district to fund it.
Minus whatever we use to put in the general fund.
So we're not going to affect the current balance, we're just not going to put anything additional in.
Oh.
We're not adding money.
Yeah,
we're not adding money.
So we're just not adding the money into it.
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry if I...
I know, this is, this
Yeah.
stuff is confusing sometimes, so
Yeah.
that's, we appreciate the questions.
Yeah.
Just this year's money.
Yeah. Any other comments from the public? Okay, Ann, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, all right, Ken?
I'm all set.
Vince?
I'm all set.
All right, are we all in unanimous consent on this
Yes,
one as well?
absolutely.
Okay, all right, excellent, thanks, guys, and a very good question.
Yeah, great
All
question.
right, order 2526-34, the appointment of Kayla Rochalski.
Got it, Rochalski.
Awesome, as the interim assessor. Motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby appoints Kayla Rochalski as the interim assessor of the town of Gray. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
So
Motion
moved.
by Ken, seconded by Ann. So what this is that as the interim town manager, she can't be both the town manager and the assessor. okay? So we had to make her first the town manager and then her the assessor, all right? And so we're just trying to make sure, again, that we're doing things the right way. So does anybody in the general public have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Kayla a little bit and seeing the relationship, the working relationship and the mentoring Lauren's done, and I think it's a great move. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good job.
That's
Yep.
the week.
And she just got certified or something?
Awesome. Anyone else?
Great.
All right, Ed, do you have any comments? All right, anybody
No.
else?
No.
All right, again, I think we can just go to unanimous consent on this one as well? All right, excellent. All right. Order 2526-36, the adoption of the transfer station access policy. Motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby adopts the transfer station access
You missed
policy.
one, Mike. You got ahead of yourself.
Yeah, you missed one.
Oh, okay, oh, did I skip over one? All right.
Yep.
Thank you guys for catching that. I am cruising through this now.
Teamwork.
Order 2526-35, the approval of the revised fiscal year 2026 fee schedule. The motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the revised fiscal year 2026 master fee schedule as presented, effected upon adoption. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ann, seconded by Ken. Before we open it up to public, there is a copy of it, right?
Oh, you need it, yes.
Yeah.
I have it right here.
Okay. I think it's right here. I got it right here. Right. All right. So, if anybody has, this is it, right?
No.
Oh, those are, okay.
Hold on, it's right here.
Okay. Does anybody want to see it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let us dig it out real quick.
This is where it starts.
While we're digging it out, if you want to get up and ask some questions, you're more than welcome to.
There you go.
Okay. We have a copy of it right here, the master fee schedule. You're welcome to come up and grab it if you want. How many pages is it? Is it all these?
Yes, it's all of those.
Okay, it's all these. All right. While she's looking that over, does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Are you going to have any questions, ma'am, or do you just want to look at it?
No, I wanted to look at it, I didn't know what it was, it's everything.
Oh, no problem. All right, anybody else? Anything, just comment, question? Okay. Council, do you guys have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Please.
So this is going back to the ad hoc committee for the transfer station where we increased the fees down there. So I had Britt wrote up this, the next three basically go for about the transfer station of increasing the fees down there. So I just want this to know that this is all part of following up with the ad hoc committee.
Young man in the back, you have anything you want to say?
Young man, I'm going to be a grandfather here pretty soon. Yes, all the fees that Britt drafted
Yeah.
are in accordance to what the ad hoc committee requested.
And really, if I'm correct, it's
I
really
believe
just.
that's, yes, her and I went over all this, so the next three on this were the increases for you and.
Yes, so to clarify, it's not just increases to the ad
I
hoc
know,
committee, but it's
I
also.
just want to know that everybody's following up with the ad hoc.
Yeah.
Yes, this was stemmed from following up with the ad hoc committee. There's other changes that were, when reviewing ordinances, we realized we needed to update some fees throughout the fee schedule, so.
And really, it's just bringing it up to date, right? Just
Yes.
making it more realistic for today's cost that what, you know.
Yes.
So really, we're just passing, is this correct? It's just passing along the cost?
Right, yeah, so we're not bringing any, it's to offset disposal cost is what it is. So
Yeah.
if you're throwing out a couch, it's basically covering the cost of throwing out that couch. Or if you're taking, Ken and I spent forever scratching our brains trying to figure out how many mattresses fit in a dumpster. Well, to cover the cost of that mattress going into a dumpster and taking up space, is what the fee is for.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to make any, the way I understand, we're not trying to make money,
No,
we're just trying to cover our
still
fees.
losing money,
We're
but
still
we were
losing.
losing a lot of money.
Okay.
So now we just kind of, we want to break it down so people won't be throwing the mattress on the side of the road.
Yes.
But we didn't want to bleed out at the dump too bad.
Yep.
So we increased with the mattresses, the tires, what else was there increases?
So we changed the fees of Freon units, mattresses,
Television.
non-resident contractor fee, which we'll get to at the next one, tires, televisions.
Right.
And can you, Britt, since people might be listening or after the recording, I think and then not like you, and I'll get to you in a second, these are not huge expenses. The tires were what, $4 each?
So, tires actually went from $2 to $4 for off-rim, and on-rim, $4 to $6.
Okay, which is extremely cheap still. Mattresses were 10?
Mattresses were $5.
And now, I mean,
And
they
now
are
they're
10.
10.
Now they're 10, okay. TVs?
$5.
$5, okay. And any significant changes that we should probably just mention?
So the most significant changes, and I'll go over the significant changes through the whole fee schedule, not just transfer station. So significant changes that do reflect in transfer station is the next order you will be visiting is the transfer station access policy, which is for non-resident contractors. We'll talk about that more, but there is going to be a disposal sticker fee or a cost of $100 for them. We've added public safety, animal control. This is to help us recoup costs for animal control services.
Okay.
Which is $50 for transportation fees and town reimbursement rate for mileage, should we have to transport them
Okay.
further away, which that will be in the chapter 205, which we're visiting later. And then violations for our parking ordinance, which we're visiting.
And so just, what about the ad, but just for the transfer station though?
Just saying,
Yeah.
that's what we
That's
talked
it for
about.
transfer? Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
But
excellent.
because we're talking about the fee schedule.
Yeah, okay.
going through
All right.
all
They're
that.
very minute and reasonable,
Okay.
and just
Yeah.
help the town recoup costs for disposal.
Yeah, and if anybody's listening to this later on, I think, like Ken said earlier, we really want to stop, if anybody's been hiking our trails or riding on a snowmobile or a four-wheeler or dirt bike, and you're in the woods and you see, mattresses and tires and refrigerators, we want to stop that. We don't want to ruin our community. We want to make it so, communities that don't have access like we are so lucky to have this transportation, we want to make it easy for you guys to be able to do that, and, make it affordable. And, it's, what we're charging here, if you can't pay for it, come see one of us and we'll work something out with you, because, we just need this taken care of, but we're trying to cover for some of our fees. And again, I think you guys did a great job and we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Anybody in the public that have any questions or comments about this?
Thank you, I appreciate you getting, but I'm the only one who has this, I guess. I don't know.
You did it online.
Okay, I should have looked at it online then, thank you. So it's just one page has to do with the transfer station. So this is the fees for everything, how much to get a copy made here.
Yes.
How much marriage licenses, all right. And so if I go back online, because this one just says a current fee, if I go online, will it also say what it's raised to, or what it used to be?
That's a good question.
I don't know the changes.
So once this gets adopted, the current fee, this will be updated and you'll see the clean version. There won't be any red lines.
No, her question is that will you see the old fee and the new fee?
I don't know if there's a difference.
Because that would be the red line version. and we won't post the
all right,
red
so
line
ma'am,
version.
what you can do now is go look at what they are today, and then look at what
Hurry
we're
up before
proposing.
you update 'em.
Yeah,
Perfect.
excellent.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and you've been patiently waiting, thank you.
Yeah, generally, I mean, I think it's important to sort of think about, there's a couple of ways to cover costs in town, and one is to, one is to just general taxation. Every taxpayer pays some amount towards the service. The other way is through user fees, and this fee schedule is really about user fees. The users of the services are paying a little more. I mean, they may be taxpayers, so they pay for some of it through their regular tax bill, but if they're using the services, they're paying a bit more. Like if I'm not dropping tires off at the transfer station, I'm not paying that extra fee.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important for people to sort of think of it that way. I have a more specific question about the user's fees, and I thought you did a great job with these. On packet page 50, under violations, there's a civil penalty, and if undefined, and I was a little confused about what that would cover. Is that a reference to the changes in Chapter 504? And I was also similarly a little confused about the facility use fee, which comes a bit later.
Yeah.
If you just describe what that is.
I can certainly speak to that. So the civil penalty, if undefined, we have several ordinances that refer to penalties without a defined penalty. So with the ordinance referring to us being able to apply a penalty, but we don't have one defined in our fee schedule, we can't do it. So adding it to a civil penalty in our violations gives the town the ability to enforce that penalty if we so choose. The facility use penalty is clearly defined in our facility use policy ordinance, one of them. Okay. But it was not listed on our fee schedule, which is why it was added for this one.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
And then I have another question about the. This reflects my confusion about what's covered under penalties and what's covered under this fee schedule. And I wondered whether it makes sense to add a fee for businesses that are currently in violation of town ordinances. Maybe that's what you just spoke to, Britt. I'm thinking of something like the Cop Auto Graveyard or whatever that is on Route 100 south of the village. I mean, they're like every day in violation of town ordinances. And are we levying a penalty on them for that?
I think it would certainly depend on which ordinance. We can review it with Tammy, and if, depending on that ordinance, where it would fall on the fee schedule. So I wouldn't be able to give you a clear answer off the top of my head.
But in general, the answer in general across businesses or residences or whatever they might be, is that we look at the ordinance, see if there's a penalty or fee, identified there, and then look to the fee schedule for it to be defined if it's not in that ordinance.
Yeah. So if the ordinance states that we can apply a fee for a violation, the civil penalty will allow us to apply that fee. Does that make sense?
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Excellent. Thank you, Brett. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions, comments? Again, can we just go to unanimous consent on this one? Everyone agrees on this? Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, now I can go to what I wanted to go to. Adoption Order 2526-36, the adoption of the transfer station access policy. Motion, be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby adopt the transfer station access policy as presented, effective immediately upon adoption. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ann first and Vince second. Okay, so can somebody explain what the policy is? I think that's important.
Well, this follows up also with the ad hoc committee meeting, and I met with Britt, and I'm sure she'll explain it more.
Please do.
So we drafted this transfer station access policy through conversations with the ad hoc committee and John at the transfer station, primarily to address the contractors who are going around picking up debris for residents, lawn care, whatever you call it, and needing that sticker. So we came up with a way to do this effectively, not turn anyone away. So these contractors will now be provided an affidavit that they have to fill out. It's a one-time affidavit. They will get a one-time sticker just like every resident. It'll be good for a calendar year. They're saying that they are a contractor and they are swearing that everything that they are bringing to the transfer station is produced in the town of Gray. Their sticker will be at the cost of $100 for annual. So then this way it limits them having to provide something from a resident who, if it's a lawn care business, your person's not always home to be able to provide you something. So this way we can do a one-time thing. There is, where else is it? So it also goes over, if we find that they are in violation, we can cut their access and say, sorry, you can't come back.
With no refund of their.
With no refund of their sticker.
Do we also record that so they can't come back next year?
You're done, you're done. So if you're lying, you're bringing stuff in from another town, then you're in violation, then you're not, you can't get another sticker again after that.
Yeah, and my question is how do we record that so we know when they come back 6 months from now?
So they have this signed affidavit and it is listed in, listed in the operations manual that we've updated as well.
Right, and then this application would be kept on file in my office.
Okay.
And if, whenever anybody comes in to apply for a permit, then we review, and if they're on the file, then we can see previous files.
All right.
Similar to the refuse hauler's license for waste management or Casella and so on.
Okay.
Which that's included in this policy as well.
Okay.
But it gives a fair chance for folks who in town who say they get their roof shingled by, they're not subject to just one person from in town that can haul their roofing shingles in.
Yeah.
They can shop around. And they should be able to dump their roofing shingles at the transfer station. That's what they pay their taxes for, and pay the fee for disposal. That's what we're here for.
Yep.
So it just gives them ability to do that and allows them to have a contractor do that for them.
Okay, no, I definitely agree with that. Okay, I have other questions, but I want to open it up to the public first. Does anybody have any questions?
I was just curious, is $100 gets a sticker for one person's truck, or the companies can use it for whatever truck they have, or?
It is one contractor sticker per affidavit.
So that would be for the company.
So they put it on, can they use it on different trucks? What if they use 2 trucks?
Well, if they have 2 trucks and it's stuck to one, I would recommend that they get a second sticker.
Or come back twice.
Or come back twice.
Okay. It's a good question, actually. Yeah, no, absolutely. Anybody else in the audience have any questions? All right, so now here's, I'm going to start if that's okay with you guys. So my question is this, is that how do we know that, for your example, roofing shingles, how do we know that they're doing it for somebody in Gray?
They have to sign an affidavit swearing that they're telling us the truth. If we find out that they're not, that's when they would be,
excommunicated.
yes.
So currently at this point, if a contractor comes in, say they have leaf debris from Susie Q's yard over on 32 Long Hill Road, just an address for out of the air.
Yep.
I can go in, or I can check with the clerk, or however you see it, and I can call that person. I can confirm that that person is the owner of that property.
Yep.
And check their facts. And we've actually gone as far as following a contractor to see where they were hauling material from. And Standish is nowhere near Gray.
Absolutely.
And that contractor no longer hauls material into the transfer station. So,
and that's my biggest
yep,
concern.
we do our due diligence.
Okay, so it's one affidavit though a year. It's good for the entire year, but you guys may do spot checks.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
good, okay. But they don't come in every time to check with you. They just, you're just gonna do your due diligence.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. That's my biggest concern because I have seen it, and I do know, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too, where you've got people coming from other towns using us, and the reason they're coming here is because it's expensive to go other places.
Right.
You know, we've got a great transfer station, and I want to provide that for our town without being used.
I think with our recent sticker checks and random checks that we have out front at the gate has actually curbed a lot of that.
Oh, I actually had a complaint the other day, and he actually laughed about it. He's like, about time, it's been 20 years. So, you know, it's great. No, you guys are doing a great job.
Nice done.
Yep. And do you have any questions or comments?
Just want to echo what you just said, Mike. I really love this. I think this stuff has been long overdue, and really appreciate the extra work that John has been putting in, as well as Britt and Kenny actually to get this stuff done and updated. It's just awesome.
Thank you. Anybody
Yeah, I'd
else?
like to give a shout out to the guys that work at the transfer station. I went down the other day and they said they turned around 170 people in a month.
That's amazing.
So
And you think about that, just one bag each, you know, and there's not just one bag usually, so yeah.
That's not even
amazing.
summertime, so that
We're
was,
up to 187 now.
yeah.
Nice job, guys.
Yeah, good job, man. I really appreciate it, I really do.
You have to get in some badges.
All right, so I think this will go to a
badges.
unanimous consent as well, right? Oh, awesome, thank you. All right, let's see. The next is Order 2526, might as well stay right up here, guys. -37, the amendment to the swap shop policy. Motion be ordered that the Greytown Council hereby approve amendments to the existing swap shop policy as presented, effective upon adoption. Do I have a motion? Motion, Vince?
Second.
Second, Ken. All right, so before we open up the public, can you guys explain what this is?
So really nothing changed from the previous swap shop policy. It was more of while we're going through the transfer station, let's make everything that's changing for the transfer station consistent and look the same. So we updated language, formatting, and just improved some of the structure, made it easier reference, and updated the format. So
Okay.
realistically, nothing changed.
Okay, and because you're required to have a sticker to come into the transfer station now, right? The people that were coming up from Portland that were blocking the exit there are no longer able to come in and just take stuff?
You don't come through that gate without a sticker anymore.
Awesome, excellent. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments about this? Swap shop? Anybody from us? Oh,
Yeah, I just want to.
Sorry, Ken.
Go ahead, Ann.
I understand that none of this represents a change to existing policy. It's just presented in a clearer way. But I just had a quick question about packet page 72, number 2, the location and hours. I'm just looking for clarification for the meaning and intent of access is limited to times when transfer station staff are present. Does that mean that the staff have to be sort of physically present at the swap shack or swap shop, or does that also include volunteers as per number 8 below, which is the top of packet page 80? I'm just looking for a little clarification on that.
So it refers to the transfer station having staff present as in open and operating.
Open, okay, all right, thanks.
Ken?
So in the ad hoc committee meetings, they presented that they want to move the swap shop. Because one, it's a traffic hazard when people back out of there. Mike actually complained about it himself, that he almost got hit. So when they move it, it's going to be a lot more visible, and that's going to work a lot better. That's what we come to the conclusion with, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm looking into grants right now to actually erect a new swap shop. There's a couple grants out there that will help with that.
Sounds good.
It won't happen tomorrow, but we're working that way.
Excellent. All right, again, can we just go to unanimous consent? Ann, are you okay? Okay, all right, excellent. All right. So the next one is, the order requires 2 readings. So Order 2526-38. It's an amendment to Chapter 504. The next item on the agenda requires a public hearing and first reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 504. I will now open the public hearing and now the open hearing. All right, I have accepted all public comments. Once the public comment has been concluded, the public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the first reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 504, Solid Waste, Flow Control, Recycling, and Transfer Station Ordinance, as presented and schedules the second reading for June 2nd, 2026. Do I have a motion?
I'll put out a
So
motion.
moved.
Okay, Ken first and second. And I'm going to open the floor now to council discussion on this motion. Is there any?
Yeah.
Ann, please.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. First of all, I love the consistent, the standardized format and the cleanup of the language. I think that's a huge service for staff and for the for town residents. On packet page 78, 504-7, again, I'm sorry to be perseverating on the swap shop program. I'm wondering again if we should reference volunteers in section 7. Clearly, the staff have to have final authority. I think it's appropriate and important that you make that explicit. I'm just wondering if it would be useful to have a statement to the effect that volunteers may help with sorting or overseeing the swap shack, but the staff have final authority or something like that. Right, to me, but to my read, it just looks like the staff are the only ones that can do it.
So in the swap shop policy, it does state the volunteers. So this way it does give us the ability that if for whatever reason in the future we choose not to have volunteers, not saying that that's an option, if for whatever reason something happens, rather than changing the entire ordinance, we can remove the policy, repeal and replace the policy. So the policy still states that we have to, the staff still has final authority.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Brett.
Right, thank you.
And this isn't to take away the efforts that our volunteers do. That swap shop would not happen without them. They are great people, and we couldn't do without them. They're awesome.
Anybody else have any? Ken? Okay. Again, I don't want to just rip through this stuff, but is this a unanimous consent for everybody on this one as well? Okay, excellent, thank you. And Brett, you guys are doing a great job. Order 2526-39, amendments to Chapter 502. The next item on the agenda requires a public hearing and first reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 502. I will now open the public hearing. The public hearing is open now. I'm going to accept the public comments. Once all public comments has been concluded, the public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the first reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 502, parking ordinance, as presented and scheduled as the second reading for June 2nd, 2026? Do I have a motion? Motion, Vince. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ken. I'm going to open the floor up to council discussion on the parking ordinance. Ian? Vince?
I have no comments. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, can we just go to unanimous consent? Excellent. Order 2526-40, amendments to Chapter 205. The next item on the agenda requires a public hearing and first reading of the proposed amendments to 205. I will now open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. The public hearing is now closed. Once all public comment has concluded, the public hearing is closed. Motion be ordered that the Gray Town Council hereby approves the first reading of the proposed amendments to Chapter 205, Animal Control Ordinance, as presented as scheduled in the second reading for June 2nd, 2026. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Ken. Second, Ann.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm going to open it up for you, and your hand raised, yes.
Okay, yeah, all right, thanks. So, back to page 109, the dog waste removal, are there or should there be fines associated with this? I'm thinking about the watershed management work that's been done over the last couple of years by the Resiliency Committee, and we obviously heard that presentation on the ordinance tonight. But dog waste is a significant contributor to nitrogen, phosphorus, and pathogens in our lakes and water bodies. So think about that next time you eat a fish you catch in a lake or swim in a lake. I'm going to put in the chat a website, a link to a website that has that. But I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously, most people they could be off on a snowmobile trail or something and not, and nobody else is around. So they might not get seen. But if somebody, sees somebody who's not picking up after their pet, is there a fine associated with that?
There is not.
And
it's not defined in
There is a litter law in the state of Maine, though, that would actually cover that. It's not enforceable by an ACO, but it would be enforceable by law enforcement.
Now, my question is this, Anthony, John. My understanding is that nothing's even enforceable, because even if we had kept the sheriffs, we don't have a dedicated police department, and it would be unenforceable no matter, even if we give the fines. Is that's what one of the former town managers told me. Is that true?
Yeah.
Do you know?
So
pretty
as
shitty,
far
isn't
as like parking and things like that, the only way it's enforceable is if we have an ordinance that states what we plan on doing.
Yeah.
We have to have a constable
Yep.
to actually issue, well, the sheriff's department or any other law enforcement agency, if part of the contract is then for them to abide by our ordinances, they could issue the tickets, but they're not going to enforce them. I mean, that would be a town,
If it was in the animal ordinance, then an ACO can write a fine, and ACOs can write fines for anything that would be in an animal ordinance within the town.
All right.
And they can also write civil summons for court.
So I have a question for John, seeing he was the animal control officer. When I scroll through these calls from Cumberland County, animal problem, animal problem, animal problem, animal problem. Why are the deputies responding to these, and why isn't our animal control officer, where is he? I haven't seen that Tahoe in town forever. Where does he live and what is he doing?
I can't speak for public safety's animal control officer, but I do know that on occurrences, the sheriff's department will run into a stray dog out on the road and they'll stop for that. Or there'll be a disturbance between neighbors that is heated that they'll respond to that's an animal problem.
Okay. So where does our animal control live?
In Gray.
Okay. All right. Where's the Tahoe at his house?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Either at public safety or at his home.
All right, I'll dig into that.
And it's my understanding, that it could be wrong, and I'd love to find that answer out, is that if there is a call complaint, it gets forwarded to animal control, it gets documented here. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, they don't necessarily respond, it's just, it's like 911 hangups, it's like.
Well, I'm just curious, I haven't seen the Tahoe forever, that's all.
Right,
We'll
so,
dig into that
so
later.
on your call list that you probably received from Cumberland County, it may say like a unit number or a responding officer. It may say GRACO, great, that's Gray Animal Control Officer.
Okay.
So those calls were sent to him. So those are
Okay.
calls that he responded to.
Alrighty.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, you guys, are we gonna, you wanna vote for this?
Before you go to vote,
Okay.
there is an amendment we want to discuss and
Okay.
receive your feedback on.
Go for it.
So when we updated this ordinance, I kept it as dog because that's what it has been since 1990. With the current changes, we are able to update it to include dogs on cats, domestic poultry, and
Livestock.
livestock. So if the council wishes for the second reading, we can update it to include those items.
Sounds like a
It
very
does
great
get
thing.
very
That's a very
costly to
great thing.
transport.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You fine with that,
that's a
Ian?
good idea,
Ken, you fine with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a good
we're
idea.
all in favor,
Okay,
yes.
so
Okay.
for the second reading, we'll make sure that those proposed updates are in there.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent.
That's
And
great.
so are we all in unanimous consent for this? Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I guess that's it.
No, Ann's up next.
I
the
thought,
next one.
no, well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it
yes,
for,
yes.
all right.
Yep.
So next is, referrals. The opportunity to allow councilors to bring forward any additional items for future discussion and consideration at a workshop. In accordance with council rules, at least 2 councilors must support a request for it to be added to the workshop agenda. And you're gonna talk about ambulance services and self-insured program and risk pool. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. I think February was, our medical reimbursement services had come to the council and done a talk on our, the costs, kind of the cost that the town is incurring when there's non-payment of fees by residents who use ambulance services. And usually this is the case when residents don't have insurance that covers ambulance services, or the insurance that they do have doesn't cover the full cost, and they can't afford to pay it. And so the town ends up eating about $40,000 to $50,000 a year, it sounds like, in those kinds of fees. And the presenter also noted that a number of towns in Cumberland County have created subscription insurance pools for their residents, where residents can pay into the pool based on a fee schedule developed by the town. And they have to pay in annually, and the year runs from the calendar year, January 1st to December 31st. And compared to the cost of an ambulance, these are relatively low fees. They're very affordable, like, $10 for a senior citizen who's age 60 or over per person. So, but $15 per couple. There's other fees for summer residents or family plans or businesses. But they're very affordable, and what happens because of that, lots of people subscribe. And in Standish, what they found is that this it's sort of like an insurance pool by subscription, and that they found that it more than covers their fees and has actually made a little extra. And it takes a little while, maybe a year or two, for it to really get up and running. But they send out they send out the notices for the next year's subscription with their tax notices in the fall. And it just seems to me that with an aging population and people stressed by high housing costs, and the Trump administration eliminated those Obamacare subsidies, there's been cuts to Medicaid, and now there's higher gas and other costs resulting from the war in Iran. And I guess we're spending $1 billion on the new White House ballroom. So this seems like an important service that could benefit Gray residents and reduce the town's tax burden. So, I mean, I don't know that we may have other priorities that we need to focus on immediately, but I'd be willing to take a lead on that. And I know that this, isn't one of the priorities that we identified back in September of 26, but it does seem like something that could save the town some money and be a good service to residents, and is pretty easy to administer once it's up and running. So I'd be happy to take the lead on trying to work with staff and volunteers to put one together for the town of Gray, with the idea that we would bring it back to the council for approval.
Yeah, no, I if we can save some money and it helps out the citizens, I will definitely be the second on that. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else have any?
No,
look at it?
Ann and I had spoken about it over the phone, and it's it makes a lot of sense, because remember, there are people that we don't get paid, that don't pay because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And this is more affordable, and again, that may help the town recoup some money instead of losing.
Absolutely.
So,
No, and listen, everyone deserves
absolutely
help. Absolutely. All right, excellent. I guess that's all we do for that, right?
It's it, yeah.
Then we just have the current council referrals, which is the comp plan rezoning, the create water quality shoreland, the pop-up ordinance.
Could I bring something up?
I don't see why not. Yeah.
I guess just for food for thought, with Charity's last meeting would be next month.
Yep.
And her being the council liaison with the union.
Yep.
We should probably think about at some point at least having a discussion on a replacement for her.
Okay, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
that's all.
Yeah, all right, excellent. So we've got the business ordinance, the updated public safety ordinance, the VTP project, the policy review, and the mooring ordinance. For upcoming meetings, we have a town council workshop June 2nd. We have a town council meeting June 2nd at 7 p.m. The workshop is at 6 p.m. We have election day, June 9th. I think it's the 13th, what day, Tuesday, that we're looking at for the 12th,
For the
okay.
volunteer awards?
No, for the.
What you looking at?
The candidate.
Candidates.
Oh, the candidates forum is the 19th.
The 19th, okay? And we're not going to have an executive session tonight. And I want a motion to adjourn the meeting at, what's that, 9:15?
So moved.
All right, second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Excellent, thanks, guys. Thanks for having a great night. Appreciate it.